Knight introduces himself as a casual gamer who's completely obsessed with role-playing. Because of this obsession, he always dedicated himself entirely to whatever character he was playing. He never felt even a single shred of shame or regret about committing so hard to his roles. But right now, a massive skull-headed monster is screaming at him to just hurry up and die. The beast mocks him for running away so pathetically before launching a deadly attack. As he falls, he realizes his love for role-playing completely vanished the moment he logged into this specific game. He plummets helplessly through the air, losing his grip on his sword. Now lying defeated on the ground, he coughs up blood and curses this absolute trash of a game. He wonders why he has to suffer like this when he only wanted to play games and escape his harsh reality. Grunting in pain, blood drips from his mouth as he struggles to keep going. As he stands battered, the giant skull monster mocks his pathetic state and tells him to just die. But the knight refuses to give up, muttering that he just wants something else. The monster keeps taunting him, asking if he is finally ready to embrace death. With a sudden burst of rage, he screams that he wants to quit this roleplay and go home. A massive explosion of red energy erupts as he channels his fury. His only remaining desire is to finally return to his real life. A futuristic system interface suddenly loads up, confirming the user connection and welcoming a glitched name. The narrator explains that the tragedy started with his younger sister, Irina, who ran outside thinking their father had finally come home. Instead of a happy reunion, the white dress he bought her for her birthday was instantly stained in deep red. Standing over her body is a dark figure holding a pitch-black blade that absorbs all light. His older brother, the head knight, screams out in horror before becoming the next victim of the slaughter. Next was his older sister, who took over as head knight and charged at the killer with pure rage. He wonders if there were tears in her eyes as she fought to avenge their family. But even if she cried, those tears were quickly washed away by a spray of fresh blood. The boy remembers his mother crying out to him, desperately telling him to run away, though he can't recall if she was holding a kitchen knife or his father's sword. He cried out that he was a knight too, but she insisted that he had to escape the chaos immediately. He believes his father returned as well, but his memories after grabbing a sword are a blurry, blood-red haze. His vision flashed from white to black until he finally woke up gasping for air under the cold moonlight. He vividly remembers the agonizing sensation of a blade piercing deep into his right arm. With a painful groan, the boy trips and collapses onto the dark forest path. A terrifying, shadowy figure looms over him, calling him a fine vessel. The boy looks up in absolute terror as the dark entity smiles down at him. Terrified and covered in blood, he desperately tries to back away, begging for it to stop. The shadow grabs him by the neck, declaring he will become something great, while a desperate prayer begins. The voice prays for a strong soul capable of overcoming evil and defeating demons. The plea echoes into the void, asking if anyone can answer the call. A white-haired man with bandages on his head suddenly gasps awake. He slowly opens his eyes, looking completely disoriented as he wakes up. A rough-looking man yells at him to get off the wagon, but he just stares back silently. He finds himself sitting in a covered wagon, right in the middle of a bustling trading post. The knight suddenly stands up, startling the wagon driver, who jumps back in surprise. Without saying a single word, he turns around and begins to walk away. His heavy boots clank against the stone pavement with every step he takes. The driver scowls behind his back, muttering about how arrogant he is. The knight keeps a perfectly stoic, edgy expression as he glides through the crowd. But internally, he's absolutely thrilled, celebrating how incredibly immersive this roleplay experience is. He is completely blown away by the realism of the game's opening, feeling like he's looking at his own past as he walks among NPCs who seem like real people. He admits he's so excited he could dance right in the middle of the street. But with things being this intense from the start, he wonders if he can actually keep up his roleplay in Legend of Heroes here at the Tatara Trading Post tutorial area. He explains that the original masterpiece was shut down 15 years ago, and now he's finally playing its brand new VR remake as a dedicated fan. He stands tall, looking out over the town under the bright blue sky. Because above all else, he is a true role-playing junkie. Covering his eye with his armored gauntlet, he dramatically mutters that his eye aches. He quickly breaks character to defend himself, insisting he isn't actually some cringe edgelord and just wanted to try that line once. Even if no one asked, he's eager to explain the awesome concept he's role-playing. With a wide grin, he holds up a tablet to show off the custom concept art he drew himself. He proudly introduces his character class as the Demon Knight, a tragic figure whose family was slaughtered by the very demon now living in his right arm. He explains that while this demon grants him superhuman strength, he's constantly haunted by the fear that it will eventually devour him. Because of that terrifying fate, he believes everyone around him will die by his own hands. So he keeps his distance from others while his nerves stay completely on edge. He puts on a sharp, cold exterior to hide his lonely, unstable inner self, but then he suddenly breaks character with a huge grin, revealing this is just his ultimate roleplay concept. Even though it cost him a fortune to buy the fluttering coat and clanking armored arm, he has absolutely no regrets as he strikes a dramatic pose in public, completely ignoring the confused bystanders who think he's just trying to take a dump. After finishing his dramatic entrance, he looks up at the sky and wonders what he's supposed to do next, expecting a classic game quest window to pop up any second. When nothing appears, he starts to panic a bit, wondering if there's a minimap or if he just has to stand around waiting for a quest NPC to find him. Right on cue, a young man approaches him from behind and asks if he's the adventurer known as the Demon Knight, making him realize his epic journey is finally starting. The knight is completely thrown off when he realizes there are no dialogue choices or response keywords popping up. The boy nervously asks if he is really the one, and he awkwardly confirms that yes, it is indeed him. Trying to look cool, he puts on a serious face and tells the kid to lead the way. The poor kid gets completely terrified by his intense look and quickly stammers out a response. The boy asks if he is heading to the Adventurer Guild and begs him to follow along. The knight notices how incredibly tense the kid is and wishes he could just tell him that he is actually a nice guy. As they walk through the bustling streets, the knight marvels at how realistic the NPCs and their conversations sound. He reminds himself that they are just in-game characters, thinking about how incredibly fast VR and AI technology have developed. The boy suddenly stops in front of a building and announces that they have finally arrived. He opens his eyes as he arrives at the Tatara Adventure Guild. As they step inside, the guide loudly announces to Isran that he has brought the adventurer, but he is completely distracted, marveling at how insanely realistic the floor textures and sounds are before she welcomes him. Introducing herself as Isran, she easily recognizes him as the Demon Knight and asks to see his adventurer token. Suddenly, a bright system notification flashes right in front of his face. It explains how to use the inventory, but he silently complains that the screen is blocking his only good eye. Despite the awkward UI placement, he reaches into his bag, pulls out the token, and hands it over for confirmation. Since the client is in a rush, Isran offers to guide him immediately, and he tells her to lead the way. As they walk, he gets incredibly nervous but excited to finally start his very first tutorial quest. He stares at the old man, thinking to himself that this guy looks even more ridiculous in person than the rumors suggested. The old chairman immediately starts trash-talking, asking if he accepted the quest out of sheer bravado or if he is just suicidal, while Isran tries to hold him back in a panic. Instead of getting mad, he is actually thrilled because he realizes he can pick a fight with this programmed old man without feeling any guilt. The chairman demands to know why he is staying silent, prompting Isran to beg him to watch his mouth, but Knight has already decided on his perfect comeback. He glares back with a cold, serious expression, ready to deliver his line. With a dramatic, glowing red eye, Knight tells the old man that his tongue has no manners, leaving everyone in the room completely stunned. Breaking character immediately, Knight scratches his head in confusion. He wonders why on earth these programmed characters are reacting with so much genuine shock. He suddenly wonders if the people around him are actually NPCs, realizing too late that he should have figured it out right then and there. The Demon Knight looks at the terrified group and wonders why these NPCs are reacting with such genuine shock. The old chairman tells him to follow along to hear the details, while the gamer just wonders when the quest window will finally pop up. Isran asks if he really volunteered without knowing the details, but he reasons that he is just following the game's story. As a total roleplay addict, he is absolutely thrilled to get such realistic reactions from the characters. Isran hesitates, but the Demon Knight leans into his dark persona and asks if his target could actually pose a threat to him. With a terrifying red glow in his eye, he coldly dismisses the danger as nothing more than insignificant bugs. The protagonist's older brother tries to ease the tension, and the chairman gladly accepts his help if he is willing. The older brother explains that workers were sent down into the sewers to fix a problem, but none of them ever returned. The old man adds that a dangerous demon nest has settled deep inside the area. He warns that previous hunters failed, and they must now recover the missing workers' belongings. Isran, however, doubts if their guest can even swing a sword with such a frail body. The Demon Knight scoffs, calling the task simple sewer cleaning, while wondering why his quest window hasn't appeared. His arrogant attitude shocks the guild staff, making him internally regret acting so dramatic. He brushes it off as dealing with hyper-realistic NPCs and officially accepts the commission. Isrin prepares the contract, outlining the goal to eliminate the demons and recover any belongings. When the Demon Knight asks about the casualties, she reveals that 13 workers are missing. He asks about the deadline, and after getting a slightly extended limit of 1 month and 2 days, he realizes the game is forcing him to progress purely through realistic dialogue instead of a quick system pop-up. She happily explains that the massive reward is 400,000 gal, but he immediately feels ripped off when she casually mentions a 5% commission fee. With the contract officially established, she beams and tells him to make sure to look for her at the guild once the mission is complete. After signing the paperwork, the quest window finally pops up, prompting Demon to curse the developers for their perverted sense of realism, though he secretly loves how immersive it is. The head knight lets him know that an inn has been booked under the merchant group's name and a guild official will guide him there. He then hands over a hand-drawn map of the sewer, leaving Demon amused by the fact that even the minimap in this game is completely analog. With a serious look, the head knight tells Demon that he is counting on him to get the job done. It is the heavy, genuine concern of someone sending a warrior into a place they might never return from, yet they both stand ready to do what must be done. He feels incredibly nervous about acting in front of such a realistic NPC, but he reminds himself that he is getting paid and cannot afford to fail. A heavy metal gate slowly begins to open, creaking loudly as it rises. The gate opens completely, revealing the dark entrance ahead. Demon stands at the threshold of the dark sewer entrance as the light shines behind him. The client begs Demon to handle the pests, and Demon casually assures him that he has everything under control. Demon proudly shows off his massive, legendary two-handed sword of destruction to the client. Demon stands silently over the defeated giant rat, looking down at his massive weapon. With one swift strike, Demon completely slices a giant sewer rat in half. He panics internally when he notices that just tapping the rat decreased his sword's durability. Realizing the narrow sewer might break his giant sword, he decides to switch to a different weapon. He equips a standard longsword for its perfect balance, feeling completely pumped and ready to start his hunt. He draws the blade with a serious look, fully embracing his dark warrior persona. As he walks past the gate, a nearby man watches him leave with a mix of awe and curiosity. The onlooker is deeply impressed, thinking this is by far the most intimidating demon hunter he has ever seen. The man silently hopes the hunter's combat skills actually match his terrifying look as he heads deeper into the dungeon. A short while later, Demon is already surrounded, cursing the vile creatures as he unleashes a flurry of glowing green slashes. He tears through the horde effortlessly, his glowing red eye flashing as he slices down the remaining monsters. He vows to send his enemy back to the homeland they crawled out of. A severed goblin head flies through the air, leaving a bloody trail behind it. He steps over the monster's remains, calling the fight incredibly boring. Looking at the pile of defeated monsters, he wonders why they were left unhandled for so long. But then, another realization hits him. He is absolutely devastated that not a single item dropped after all that hunting. He screams in frustration at this stingy trash game, realizing the high tutorial reward was just a trap. He continues to whine about the complete lack of item drops. He feels so cheated that he wants to personally rummage through the goblin corpses. However, he can't do that right now because a young boy is hanging right there, watching him. The Demon Knight slices the vines, sending the screaming boy falling to safety. He grabs the falling boy by his leg just in time. Dangling upside down, the terrified kid stammers out a quick thank you. A system notification pops up confirming the optional quest to rescue the child is complete. He notices the boy is bigger than his sister Irina from the opening, making him reflect on his tragic character settings. He decides to play along and act like a proper knight, even if his demon-possessed hand is too dangerous to pat the kid. When the boy asks if he is a knight, he proudly confirms it, determined not to be mean to kids. As they walk, he asks why the boy was trapped, and the kid explains his mother went to clean the sewer and never returned. The young boy apologizes, explaining he only came down here to find her. While Demon internally laments how depressing this is, he coldly tells the kid that finding her wasn't his job, and he should have trusted the adults. The boy apologizes again, making Demon secretly want to hug and comfort him, though he outwardly tells the kid not to apologize to him. They soon find the mother's belongings scattered near a skeleton, confirming her tragic fate. The boy breaks down crying so intensely that the Demon Knight can't bring himself to leave him behind. He ends up carrying the exhausted child under his arm as they make their way out. Walking through the dark corridors, he wonders if a highly skilled child actor performed the motion capture for this NPC. Even knowing it's just a game, the emotional weight feels incredibly real, making him glad this isn't reality. A system notification pops up, explaining that demonic spaces must be purified with holy power or pure flames to stop demons from returning. The system urges him to complete the purifications so that demons will never plague this land again. He looks back with deep regret, wondering if paying closer attention to that message would have spared him some of this pain. Suddenly, a panicked man rushes in screaming for help, shouting that their merchant group's flare was just fired nearby. He warns everyone that a red flare means an absolute emergency with multiple casualties, while a horrific scene of fallen victims flashes by. A terrified young boy hides in the shadows, desperately covering his mouth to keep from making a sound as something dangerous lurks nearby. A little while ago, after finally waking up outside the sewer, the young boy sadly asks if his mother is happy in heaven. The demon knight quietly agrees, though he secretly worries about the developer's twisted sense of humor. They arrive at the guild, where Isrin is surprised to see them and asks what brings him back. She looks down in concern, wondering who the child is. The demon knight explains that the boy is a laborer's child who went looking for his parents, telling her to get the details from him. He then hands over a heavy sack, catching her completely off guard. As she grabs the heavy bag, he explains that these are the recovered belongings, including the boy's mother's things. Isrin asks in disbelief if these are the belongings of all 13 missing people. The demon knight bluntly confirms it, prompting a flustered Isrin to quickly promise she will verify their identities. Looking at the bag of adventurer tokens, she is deeply moved by the sight. She hugs the heavy bag tightly and bows, expressing her deepest gratitude on behalf of the entire guild. He internally agrees she should be grateful, remembering how frustrating it was to search the sewers without any quest markers. But hearing her thank him with such a choked-up voice actually melts all his frustration away. He realizes with a bit of dread just how scary and powerful this game's immersion really is. Isrin then asks if this is the end of his hunt for today, which completely confuses him. He wonders why any player would ever stop hunting, while she suggests he should take a little break before going back. He scoffs at the idea of a break since he spent his savings on an expensive full dive machine, but he wonders if her dialogue is hinting at a linked quest. He asks if she is prompting him to do the purification quest, explaining he only came back to avoid suffocation damage. Isrin is completely taken aback and stutters in confusion at the mention of purification. She nervously asks him to clarify if he actually took care of all the demons in the sewer. He confidently confirms he did, leaving her sweating as she assumed he had only returned to drop off the rescued child. Thinking she is being way too dramatic about his clear time, he leans into his role and asks her if she's looking down on him. A terrified Isrin frantically apologizes and bows, while the head knight promises to take care of the rescued boy and offers to bring in the client. While he waits, the demon knight decides to check his skill window and review his recent level up. The client arrives and hands over a heavy pouch containing the quest reward of 400,000 gal. The demon knight is amazed by how brutal the developers are, realizing that money in this remake only comes from quests, unlike the drop-heavy original game. The head knight explains that they will cover the brokerage fee and pay a premium price for any demon loot. This makes the demon knight remember the butchery skill, though he admits he still would have chosen combat skills anyway. His in-character reason is that a dark knight would never care about spare change from mere bugs. He proudly declares that a true roleplay junkie always builds their entire skill tree based on their character's lore. He reminds himself that since this is a single-player game, he can choose any skills he wants without worrying about party roles. He eagerly hopes that even cooler skills will pop up for him to use in the future. But to get those skills, he needs to level up quickly, so he asks the guild if his current job is officially done. With the quest completed, he prepares to leave, but a sudden system notification completely startles him. Just then, someone yells for the chairman about an emergency, making the grumpy old man snap back in irritation. The demon knight quietly admires the old man's foul-mouthed, classic neighborhood grandpa design. A panicked messenger bursts in, shouting that their merchant group's rescue signal flare just went up nearby. Since the city guards are moving too slowly, the demon knight realizes this is a classic early-game quest chain. The old guild chairman is absolutely furious, screaming that those useless freeloaders are taking all the money without doing their jobs and demanding to send their own men immediately. He then points right at the Demon Knight, ordering him to go as well, though our hero is more concerned with delivering his cool, pre-planned line first. When the Demon Knight coldly warns him not to order him around, the old man quickly changes his tune, pleading that it's just a request and promising a massive payout. With the deal officially struck, the Demon Knight tells the guide to lead the way, while Isrin promises to have the paperwork ready for his return. Just then, a system notification pops up in front of him, presenting a high-stakes quest to save people in danger. He is pleased to see the quest trigger, knowing it is the perfect chance to gain some experience. When the guide suggests regrouping with the mercenaries first, the Demon Knight immediately shuts him down, demanding to go straight to the action. He realizes this is a time-sensitive quest where every second counts, while the guide convinces the shocked chairman to let him go alone since he cleared the sewers by himself. The guide quickly leads him toward the horses, and the Demon Knight confidently assures himself that riding will be a breeze thanks to his simulator game experience. The Demon Knight charges forward, shouting for his precious experience points to wait for him. A flock of birds scatters across a dark blood-red sky as tension builds. A massive beast charges through the forest, kicking up dust and debris. He prepares his weapon, dramatically declaring victory for his blade. A blade slices forward, creating a brilliant flash of red light and energy. He rides his horse right into a swarm of ugly goblins, trampling them down. He slices through the monsters with absolute fury. The Demon Knight roars, claiming glory for the heavens as he fights. As the merchant group is cornered by a swarm of goblins, a desperate survivor spots him approaching and yells that reinforcements have finally arrived. But his hope quickly turns to confusion and panic when he realizes it is just a single person, begging him to be the vanguard and save them. Nearby, another man struggles against a goblin, desperately screaming at the monster to get away from him. He clings to the hope of survival now that help is here, but is suddenly cut off as a blade slashes right in front of him. The Demon Knight leaps gracefully from his horse, ready to join the chaotic fray. A swordsman leaps from his horse as a powerful shockwave erupts from the ground below him. He charges straight into the heart of the goblin horde, surrounding the merchant wagon. Standing over a fallen monster, he calmly asks the wounded man if he was the one who asked to be saved, promising to grant that wish. He vows to slaughter every single monster before the man can bleed out, leaving the survivor to wonder in disbelief if he intends to do this completely alone. The Demon Knight scoffs, drawing his sword while declaring that the question is not even worth answering. His single exposed red eye glows with an intense deadly focus as he prepares to unleash his wrath. He snaps, screaming that he's going to tear the vermin apart. He unleashes a devastating red slash that cuts through the horde of goblins. A body is split in two by a brilliant red slash, sending blood flying. Two terrified survivors watch from the shadows as the warrior stands over the carnage. The trembling men can only stare in horror, wondering if their savior is actually a monster. Far away, a blonde woman tells her red-haired companion they must head to the trading post tomorrow because she senses a powerful demonic energy. A system notification pops up warning about people in danger and showing the current number of survivors. The Demon Knight complains about getting monster flesh in his mouth, while a survivor tries to thank him. The survivor suddenly panics upon realizing someone is suffering from demonic energy erosion. The system explains that those attacked by a demon have a chance of being eroded by demonic energy. A victim lies on the ground, foaming at the mouth as the dark corruption spreads through him. The system warns that higher erosion levels cause status ailments and can turn a person into a demon. The survivors desperately ask if there is any medicine, but they only have temporary sedatives. The Demon Knight suddenly remembers that this game mechanic actually existed. In the original game, taking damage from a demon would build up the erosion gauge. He completely forgot about it because his own class is already possessed and immune to the effect. He realizes he has some handy items in his inventory, and since saving more people means a bigger payout, he decides to use them. He hands a glowing green potion to a terrified survivor who can barely believe his luck. A system screen explains that this is a demonic energy antidote which purifies corruption and temporarily calms the mind. Clutching the bottle tightly, the young man tearfully thanks his savior. Demon tells them to use the supplies as he tosses over an antidote, bandages, and a sedative. The survivors quickly call to gather the wounded, while Demon smugly realizes why the game gave him so many starter items. Looking at the quest screen showing 27 survivors, he wonders if there is anything else left to do. Just then, horse riding reinforcements arrive in the distance and the quest completion screen finally pops up. The system officially confirms that the quest to save the people in danger is complete. But Demon's relief is short-lived when a new quest immediately pops up, asking him to recover 25 bodies. He is completely dumbfounded by this sudden demand to clean up the battlefield. He complains that doing manual labor like this really hurts his pride as a dark hero. He stands back in the dark forest watching the scene unfold. But then he realizes that the work the NPCs are doing actually counts toward his quest progress, so he decides to just stand there and watch. This lazy attitude immediately gets the workers grumbling about what a jerk he is for just standing there with his arms crossed. Demon doesn't care at all and silently laughs, telling them to keep grumbling as much as they want. He gloats about how sweet it is to slack off while NPCs do all the heavy lifting, though the workers feel an odd chill. Hearing the workers talk about the strange demon attack, Demon wonders if this detailed dialogue is a hook for the next big game storyline. However, the mood turns serious when the workers point out that several of the dead bodies are completely missing from the scene. As they wrap up, one of the survivors complains about the high taxes and lack of protection, muttering that he's going to protest to the Castellan for compensation. Meanwhile, he quietly analyzes the situation, realizing that the missing bodies point to a demon worshipper or a black magician, which will likely trigger a quest to find the real culprit. Just then, a system notification pops up, confirming that he successfully recovered all 25 bodies and retrieved all 30 items. With the quest officially cleared, he tells the group it's time to head out and leads them back to the city. Back at the guild, the old chairman welcomes him back, quietly praising him for a job well done. Demon Knight doesn't care much for the praise, bluntly telling the old man to just make sure he gets paid fairly. The chairman scoffs, asking if he looks poor enough to cheat an adventurer, but quickly calls out for him to wait as the warrior turns to leave. Slamming his cane on the floor to get his attention, the old man stops him in his tracks. He looks back over his shoulder as the chairman reveals he has another request he wants to entrust to him. Demon Knight demands an explanation, while the head knight nervously points out that they don't have any urgent tasks requiring a new mercenary. But the chairman snaps back, asking what else it could possibly be besides demon extermination. He then specifies that the target is located in the northwest forest. Isrin chimes in, confused because that area was already assigned to other guild adventurers, but the chairman furiously yells that he's stepping in because those guys haven't reported back at all. He yells that too many people depend on the northwest forest, so he's sending him immediately. He secretly appreciates the old man's caring nature before confirming his mission to exterminate the forest demon. She agrees to process the request right away, though she still worries about the adventurers who already set off. The chairman rants about those weaklings getting dropped, but Isrin reminds him he still has to pay the cancellation fee. The head knight steps in to confirm if the demon knight is officially taking on the job. Since it's getting late, he offers to lead him to an inn and discuss the details along the way. The next day arrives with a bright sunny sky. A system quest notification pops up, directing him to move to the dangerous northwest forest. A horse-drawn carriage carries the demon knight and his companion down the cobblestone road. Inside, the demon knight suffers in silence, complaining about a game that actually simulates leg cramps. He gets incredibly frustrated that this trash game forces him to endure a 10-hour carriage ride with no skip function. He questions his life choices, but finds some comfort in the young boy staring at him with pure admiration. Inside the carriage, he tells himself to endure the ride because a massive double wealth event is waiting for him once this quest is over. The next morning, after a night at the inn, the head knight draws up a formal contract and asks him to take care of the matter as quickly as possible. He demands to know the payment, and the head knight reveals the bounty on the target's head is a whopping 700,000 gal, leaving him internally shocked. The head knight suddenly offers to add another 200,000 gal just to catch it, making Demon realize his silent confusion is accidentally driving the price up without even using negotiation skills. He wonders if this is just a scripted event from the original game, or if he can actually negotiate rewards without any skills as the silence stretches on. Misinterpreting his quiet stare, the head knight panics and throws in another 300,000 gal. The client clenches his fist in determination while Isrin stands quietly in the background. Demon is absolutely thrilled by his accidental bargaining power, though he keeps his cool exterior and tells the man to have the money ready. With the deal sealed, Demon turns to leave immediately to start the hunt. The head knight is shocked by his sudden departure and tries to tell him he can rest for a day first. He makes it clear that he has no intention of wasting any time when a demon is involved. A horse-drawn carriage travels down the street of the trading post. Inside, he happily daydreams about getting rich off real estate once he hits max level. The young boy sitting next to him asks if he is an adventurer, but the demon knight bluntly denies it. Seeing the kid look a bit down, he immediately worries that he was way too blunt. To soften the blow, he adds that he does similar work and asks if the boy is curious about something. The boy's eyes light up as he asks if he has ever seen the ocean, making the demon knight marvel at how realistic the kid's programming is. He confirms he has, beautifully describing the ocean as blue like the boy's eyes and wavy like his hair. Their carriage ride to the northwest forest is actually pretty peaceful, even if the bumpy road makes it a bit uncomfortable. But he has absolutely no idea what kind of crazy situation is waiting for him at his destination. Suddenly, weapons clash as someone yells at him, calling him a mere human who dared to betray God. It turns out his opponent is a furious red-haired woman in armor, and he never expected to run into someone like her here. The demon knight walks alone through the eerie, red-leafed forest. Suddenly, he stops and narrows his eyes, sensing something nearby. A system notification pops up, explaining that his search skill detects any nearby hostility. He grins smugly, realizing how much easier it is to hunt demons with these handy skills. Just then, the system warns him of a hostile target within 10 meters, catching him off guard. He quickly looks around, trying to spot where the threat is coming from. Suddenly, the Inquisitor blocks his path, accusing him of betraying God by siding with demons. She leaps forward to attack him in the name of God, her sword gleaming. He calmly tracks her movement and reaches for his own blade to defend himself. She charges in with a massive swing, screaming that she will strike him down. Demon blocks the heavy blow, realizing her attack is going to absolutely wreck his sword's durability. As they back away, he notices her armor and wonders if she is actually from the church. The Inquisitor coldly confirms his suspicion, stating she's here to execute him, leaving him completely baffled. He stares back at her in silence, trying to process why a holy knight is targeting him. He asks why on earth a priest would want to execute him of all people. He points out that the church is supposed to be about mercy and good deeds, but she furiously cuts him off, calling him a demon. The words echo in his mind as he stands alone in the quiet forest. He points to himself in sheer disbelief, wondering if she actually just called him a demon. He realizes this aggressive woman is a priest, but since there is no quest notification, he is completely confused about why she is calling him that. He doesn't even have any cursed items on him, completely forgetting about the literal shadow creature clinging to his shoulder. Then it suddenly clicks for him. He realizes this misunderstanding is actually a golden opportunity to play into his tragic character concept. Remembering his lore about wearing a gauntlet out of disgust for his possessed arm, he prepares to exploit her hatred of demons. He leans heavily into the roleplay, dramatically telling the fanatic not to call him a demon. A knight holds his sword in front of his face under a menacing red moon. He delivers a classic, righteous knight line about victory and glory to the heavens. But the Inquisitor isn't buying it at all, calling him a corrupted traitor who is just mimicking a true knight. As she charges down to execute him, he casually admits to himself that she's technically right, since he was never actually knighted. With that in mind, he readies himself to make his next move. He warns his opponent that he has no intention of fighting fair, prompting the furious Inquisitor to call him a coward for hiding in the dark. He immediately activates his breaker skill, coating his weapon in dark magic to unleash a massive downward strike. She groans as she barely manages to block the heavy dark impact with her massive shield. The demon knight mocks her, saying she looks just like a baby turtle cowering behind that shield. She vows to take his head for all those who have suffered, while he wonders what kind of magic she is preparing. She raises her glowing mace high, declaring that God is on her side as a brilliant light erupts. The blinding flash forces the demon knight to shield his eyes from the intense glare. He quickly realizes it is a powerful full-body buff and cannot help but feel a little jealous of her amazing skill. He realizes how overpowered his opponent is, noting that in the original game, this effect only applied to weapons, though the damage multiplier should still be the same. He notices she isn't attacking directly but is spreading light instead, wondering if she's casting purification, since priest classes are usually too slow to land direct hits anyway. Confident in his speed despite the level gap, he rushes in, only to realize his attacks are completely useless against her shield's perfect guard rate. He clenches his teeth and stomps his foot, realizing the shield is impossible to break. Realizing that breaking through her shield is impossible, he quickly leaps back to regroup. Seeing him back off, the Inquisitor calls him a traitor and demands he step forward to face her if he has nothing to hide. He glares back at her, completely unfazed by her provocation. He gladly accepts the challenge and charges straight at her, slamming his sword against her massive shield. The impact forces a grunt out of the Inquisitor as he uses her shield as a stepping stone to get around her. He knows that while priest classes have sturdy armor, their heavy gear makes them incredibly slow, giving him the perfect opening. She looks up in absolute shock as he looms over her with his sword raised. He screams that it is all over for the fanatic as he unleashes his attack. She barely manages to block the devastating downward strike, groaning under the immense pressure. Meanwhile, the narrator notes that the Demon Knight is showing off his true capabilities. He moves with incredible agility, completely catching his opponent off guard. His class boasts top-tier attack speed, and he commands the flames to burn his enemy, leaving her shocked by his magic. Just then, a mysterious voice remarks on how much the Inquisitor is struggling in this fight. The Archmage finally arrives on the scene, promising to back her up despite being late. She spots her ally and excitedly calls out to the Archmage. Demon is completely thrown off, repeating their high-level class names in utter confusion. He realizes they must be talking about the incredibly powerful 3rd Advancement Priest and Mage classes. He panics, realizing his opponents are a high-level healer tank and ranged DPS combo, while he is just a low-level noob who barely finished the tutorial. The Demon Knight stands before the Inquisitor and the Archmage, completely overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the situation. He internally panics, realizing that fighting these high-level bosses as a beginner is like throwing an egg at a giant mountain. He shivers at the thought of getting beaten to death without even a pain toggle function in this hyper-realistic game. But then he bites his glove in frustration, wondering what kind of brutal death penalty awaits him if he fails. Suddenly, a realization hits him, and he wonders if the developers actually intended for him to die here. He reasons that death itself must be a core game system, and dying might finally unlock all the locked convenience functions. With a bright light bulb popping over his head, he happily thanks the developers and prepares to face his end with peace of mind. He closes his eyes for a brief moment to compose himself. Since he is going to die anyway, he resolves to cast aside his fear entirely. Deciding to go out in style, he glares at his opponents and mockingly calls out the Archmage for hanging out with a reckless kid. The Inquisitor snaps at him, accusing him of acting innocent when he is clearly contracted with a demon, adding that her companion is just doing her job. Suddenly, a system alert pops up warning him that hostile targets are within a 10-meter radius, catching him completely off guard. He looks around warily, wondering if they brought even more reinforcements to back them up, but it turns out to be a massive, terrifying presence, which the Archmage immediately recognizes as Medusa, prompting the demon to hilariously complain that she stole his line. The Inquisitor immediately points her weapon at him, accusing him of summoning his comrades while pretending to be innocent. The demon is genuinely confused by the accusation, repeating the word with a blank look. He scoffs, telling her that the divine light must have completely blinded her judgment. A massive, glowing-eyed giant snake looms over him, declaring its intention to chop the demon to pieces and tear his mouth apart. The system identifies the beast as Medusa, a demon made of hundreds of snakes, making the demon realize this is a scripted story event and giving him the perfect chance to take them all down. The demon charges forward with a wild grin, shouting that he will bring death upon them, while the Inquisitor tries to attack him for pretending to be an ally, ignoring her companion's plea to wait. As the Archmage stares in shock, he remembers that Medusa's core is the red snake, which in the original game required endless attacks to reveal. He reasons that his impatient personality won't let him wait for that, and since the game is so realistic, the core's location should be completely obvious. With a massive, bloody swing of his sword, he slices through the writhing masses of snakes. He aims directly for where the snake's heart would be, and smiles as he spots the glowing red snake right on target. Knowing a sword is too clumsy for this precise moment, he throws his weapon aside and plunges his bare armored hand straight into the monster's flesh. The red snake hisses aggressively as he firmly grabs it by the neck. He crushes the snake's head with his armored hand, declaring the target eliminated as he prepares to start his intense roleplay. Walking through the dark forest, he drops the dead snake onto the ground. He steps forward, crushing another red snake beneath his heavy boot. The Inquisitor and the Archmage watch from behind as he dramatically collapses to the ground, covered in blood. His bloody sword rests on the grass as a voice wonders if even fanatics have some tact. Standing tall amidst the blood and debris, he praises them for having the common sense not to get in his way. With a terrifying glare, he asks if he should rip their mouths open as a reward for staying back. Terrified by his overwhelming presence, the Archmage quickly steps in to apologize and begs him to listen to reason. The Inquisitor is completely baffled by this sudden apology, but the Archmage explains that this man isn't actually a demon contractor. This completely shatters the Inquisitor's worldview, as she can't comprehend how someone could wield demonic power without a contract. She demands a deeper explanation, and the Archmage notes that it's a legendary phenomenon only spoken of in Academy theories. Meanwhile, the demon is secretly thrilled to get a free lore drop about himself, as the Archmage explains how he suppressed a parasitic demon to steal its power. The Inquisitor refuses to believe it, insisting that suppressing a demon with pure human will alone is absolutely impossible. But the Archmage calmly corrects her, stating that nothing is truly impossible in this world. An off-panel voice wonders what they should even call the young man standing right in front of them. He snaps at them for gossiping right to his face, acting offended that they would treat him like trash. Though internally he is thrilled to show off his edgy character concept. The Archmage admits they made a mistake and offers to grant any wish, but he privately scoffs, expecting nothing more than a few pennies and basic starter gear. Demon aggressively challenges their offer, asking if they would actually cut off their own tongues if he demanded it. When they hesitate, he coldly tells them to shove their pathetic apologies if they cannot even do that much. He continues his dark monologue, saying he wants to hang their jaws at the village entrance, but will refrain so he does not end up like the demons. With a dramatic flourish, he draws his sword and commands them to get lost. Internally, the player is absolutely thrilled, amazed by how well the game's AI keeps up with his roleplay. He reasons that an edgy character only looks cool when others react well, thanking the NPCs before suddenly remembering he needs to collect the corpse. As he grabs the bloody snake corpse, a voice suddenly tells him to wait, making him worry they are going to complain about him taking his loot. He tries to play it off by whining like a newbie who needs the quest item, but the Inquisitor firmly demands he listen to her, which immediately makes him think a new quest is popping up. Out of nowhere, the Inquisitor lowers her head and offers a sudden apology. The Demon Knight is completely caught off guard as she admits that making excuses is pointless and apologizes for attacking him first. He expected a proud elite NPC to stubbornly defend her pride, but her sincere bow makes him feel awkward, so he casually brushes it off as a simple misunderstanding. She insists on offering a material reward as compensation, making him wonder if this is actually a companion recruitment event, but he quickly dismisses the idea, realizing a companion doesn't fit his edgy roleplay concept at all. Sticking to his dark persona, he coldly turns his back on her and claims he has no use for her hypocrisy. She tries to protest, but the Archmage steps in to calm her down. The Archmage points out that they have already wasted enough time and need to head back to report the completed purification. Defeated, the Inquisitor can only look down and quietly agree. She then urges everyone to pick up the pace because it is getting late. They walk through the dark forest, with the Dark Warrior leading the way, his boots crunching on the forested floor. The Archmage and the Inquisitor keep a close distance right behind him. The demon looks back in utter confusion, wondering why they are still there. He starts to panic, realizing they are actively following his every move. He reasons that he is just heading straight to the village, using his map, which they obviously cannot see. While the Archmage and the Inquisitor casually chat about their holy duties, the demon gets incredibly annoyed by their presence. Wondering if there is more to their persistence, he decides to test the waters, coldly asking the intruders why they are still here after he told them to get lost. The Archmage quickly apologizes, explaining that they did not mean to offend him. He shows his magic map, explaining they were just following their guide magic to the same destination, which makes the traveler realize his mistake. Embarrassed that they had their own navigation system and were not actually following him, the demon decides to quietly step aside. The Inquisitor calls out to him, warning that the forest is dangerous at night. The demon retorts that it is only dangerous for weaklings like them, begging the system in his head to just let him roleplay in peace. The Inquisitor watches him walk away, still worried about the dangers of the dark forest. She turns to her companion, asking if it is truly all right to let him go off alone. She points out that he is incredibly strong, and it would be a complete disaster if a demon ended up consuming him. The Archmage admits he has never seen a situation like this either, hoping the mysterious warrior stays safe despite his stubbornness. The Archmage acknowledges that wishes and reality are often different, but he has placed a tracking spell on the young man to observe him, since they are heading to the same destination. Deep in the quiet forest, the night sky glows under a full moon as birds fly through the trees. Back in the quiet town, the lights flicker inside the cozy houses under the starry night sky. A dark, cloaked figure walks up to the entrance of the guild building. Inside, Isrin is sweeping up when she hears someone enter and politely explains that it is too late to take on any new quests. She gasps in shock as she recognizes the blood-splattered demon knight, who silently hands over a heavy sack and tells her to verify the contents. Isrin starts to ask why he returned so quickly, but she immediately cuts herself off and rushes to check the bag. She pulls out the remains in disbelief, wondering why there are snake corpses inside. She gasps in absolute shock, her mouth wide open as she realizes what just happened. She can't believe he defeated a demon in the northwest forest in just 2 days. While the exhausted warrior internally complains about how much he suffered, he remembers how confidently he turned his back on his potential companions last night and started walking. But the cruel reality soon hit him when he remembered it took a full 8 hours by carriage just to get there. Covered in blood, he stands alone in the dark forest, realizing the massive mistake he made. He kept telling himself it's just a game, and they wouldn't actually make him walk the whole way, but his confidence slowly fades as day turns to night. Turns out this crazy game is a literal walking simulator, and he actually had to walk for a full day straight. Camping was out of the question because the forest's ecosystem was way too realistic and active at night. He curses this frustratingly well-made trash game, but almost cries tears of joy when the notification for the Tatara trading post finally pops up. Back in the present, Isrin confirms the demon was indeed a Medusa and promises to process the quest reward as soon as day breaks. He feels completely wiped out, wondering if he's just getting too old to handle all-nighters in a game anymore. Seeing how exhausted he is, Isrin calls over a boy named Khan to help, while the weary gamer silently thanks her and realizes he would have rage quit yesterday without his full dive setup. The boy is shocked to see him back so soon, but Isrin explains that he's exhausted from rushing his mission and needs to be guided to the local inn. The boy happily tells him to follow along, making Demon feel even more exhausted by how bright and cheerful the kid is. As they walk, Khan excitedly asks about the strong demons he hunted, but Demon shuts him down coldly, saying demons aren't something to talk about for fun. The poor kid immediately shrinks back and apologizes, leaving Demon feeling like a total jerk for taking his edgy roleplay way too far. To make up for being such a terrible adult, he decides he'll give the kid a massive tip since he made a ton of money today anyway. Once he finally collapses onto his bed at the inn, he seriously starts questioning if he should just quit this game entirely. He groans that this feels less like a game and more like an extreme job, especially since his in-game fatigue bar is completely maxed out. Ultimately, he decides to set his sleep timer for 6 hours and get some rest before making any final decisions about rage quitting. He decides to call it a night, setting his system timer to sleep for 6 hours. Outside, the night sky is quiet, filled with stars and drifting clouds. Moonlight streams through the window of his quiet room as he rests. Everything is completely still inside the dark room, but the peace won't last. Moments later, quiet footsteps approach, and someone sneaks toward his door in the dark. The door slowly creaks open while Demon Knight remains fast asleep on his bed. A man grits his teeth as he raises a club high, preparing to strike someone on the floor. Demon is barely awake when a system alert warns him that a hostile target is within 10 meters. An attacker lunges at him, but Demon blocks the heavy mace with his sword and yells right back at the crazy bastard. He complains about his useless search skill, only warning him at the last second while easily pushing the thief back. The thief wonders how this guy is so strong as Demon quickly disarms him and delivers a painful slash. The wounded thief immediately begs for his life, claiming he only wanted to steal a coin purse. Demon orders him to drop the weapon, internally laughing at how he is talking like a cop despite role-playing a dark night. The heavy spiked mace clatters loudly onto the wooden floor. The thief surrenders completely, but Demon sarcastically points out that smashing someone's head in is a pretty extreme way to get a coin purse. The desperate attacker lunges forward with a shout, but he easily dodges the strike, leaving the man gasping in shock. With a swift counter, he knocks the thief flat and calls him pathetic for trying to kill him with what looks like a toy knife. Grabbing the unconscious culprit, he can't help but laugh at how ridiculous it is to get robbed when he's already this exhausted. He kicks the door open to drag the guy out, wondering what kind of cheap single robber event the game is throwing at him. As he drags the body down the hallway, the sleeping receptionist starts to wake up from the noise. She gasps in absolute horror the moment she spots him dragging a limp body across the floor. Looking absolutely terrifying, he apologizes for losing his temper and begs her to just let him get some sleep. Instead of listening, she screams at the top of her lungs, leaving him completely baffled by her reaction. She screams that there's a murder on the loose, making a massive scene. He mutters that she must be blind to think the guy is dead, but a sudden system alert warns him of a hostile target nearby. His eyes narrow as he prepares for whatever threat is lurking in the shadows. Out of nowhere, the Inquisitor bursts in and loudly accuses him of committing a murder in such a short time. She charges forward in a rage, shouting that a conscious zombie is an absolute abomination that must be destroyed. The weary warrior is completely exhausted by this annoying NPC constantly showing up and misunderstanding everything. A woman with fiery red hair turns her head sharply, her green eyes burning with a fierce glare. The two square off in the dimly lit room, weapons drawn and tension filling the air. Even though she is a pain, the demon admits her dramatic arrivals really help him get into his edgy roleplay character. He looks down at a prompt screen displaying his dialogue options for dealing with the hostile priest. He jokes that she aggressively mashes those dialogue buttons like a crazy gamer every single time they meet. She points her weapon and yells at him to shut up, calling him a filthy body-stealing monster, while he secretly loves how perfectly she is playing into his edgy roleplay. As she charges up her glowing weapon, he glares back and warns her that she is only rushing to her own grave. He grips his dark, glowing purple sword and coldly tells her to back off if she does not want to get dragged into this mess. He narrows his eyes, focusing entirely on his opponent, as the tension between them reaches a boiling point. Just as they clash, glowing blue chains suddenly wrap around the demon, catching him completely off guard as he realizes it is a binding spell. He quickly identifies it as a mage-class crowd control skill designed to temporarily stop an enemy's movements. The archmage suddenly steps in and begs them to stop, making the demon realize exactly where the missing spellcaster had run off to. He realizes the binding spell will break on its own, but decides to play along and screams a threat to stay in character. Confused by the sudden tension, the Inquisitor turns to her ally and asks why she is telling everyone to stop. She then gasps in shock as a sudden dark magical pressure surges through the room. The onlookers watch in absolute terror as the powerful binding magic begins to crack under the strain. Demon draws his sword, which instantly becomes enveloped in a menacing purple aura. The Archmage and the Inquisitor stand frozen as a heavy dark mist fills the entire chamber. The Inquisitor panics, unable to comprehend how he broke a high-level binding spell so easily. Demon maintains his cold, silent glare. He smugly agrees with her shock, fully enjoying how overpowered his roleplay makes him look. He finds the current situation incredibly weird. He recalls how that binding skill was so overpowered in the original game that players constantly complained about it. Meanwhile, the Archmage tries to play peacemaker, urging everyone to calm down and clear up the misunderstanding, but the Inquisitor isn't having it, insisting she saw him commit murder with her own eyes and demanding an explanation. The Archmage snaps back, asking the Inquisitor if her obsession with fighting evil has completely blinded her. She tells her to look around carefully to see if anyone was actually killed, leaving the Inquisitor completely stunned. Sure enough, the man on the ground is still breathing, trembling in fear and calling Demon a monster. The Inquisitor is utterly confused, struggling to process that the victim is actually still alive. She stares in disbelief as Demon turns around to face her. Demon playfully admits that while he definitely wanted to kill the guy, he ultimately decided to spare him. The Archmage acknowledges how shameless it is to ask after attacking him first, but still requests a full explanation of what happened. The blue-haired man points out that the other guests have gathered, suggesting they clear up any misunderstandings to ease everyone's anxiety. Demon coldly demands that the thief confess with his own mouth instead of cowering on the floor. Heavy footsteps echo as someone approaches the terrified thief. Demon looms over the thief with a glowing red eye, asking if he really has to repeat himself. Terrified by the pressure, the thief immediately screams out his confession, admitting he was only after his money. The thief explains he targeted him because of the massive tip he gave the errand boy, leaving the Inquisitor completely stunned. With the misunderstanding finally cleared up, Demon lets out an exhausted sigh while his inner self celebrates. Demon warns them to pay closer attention to security units before turning around to leave, ignoring their pleas to wait. As he walks away, Demon is glad he does not have to pack since his gear is already stored in his inventory, wanting nothing more than to rest. As he walks away, he suddenly wonders why that priest and mage looked so familiar to him. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor realizes it was too dark to see clearly before and calls out to him to stop. He pauses and glances back over his shoulder. The red-haired girl stares forward with a shocked expression, her face illuminated by a bright light. Her reflection is captured perfectly in his eye as they lock eyes. He can only utter a confused sound as the sudden realization begins to dawn on them both. The Inquisitor stands in the doorway, clutching her mace tightly as she stares ahead in complete shock. Looking closely at her face, Demon notices her bright fiery red hair, which is basically a walking death flag. She also has sparkling green eyes that make her stand out even more. He realizes she is the official priest class character from the game, just as the Archmage catches up and warns her not to rush in. The Archmage lectures her on thinking before speaking, and Demon realizes she is also an official character. She matches the official appearance of the Mage class, a tall beast person from the Shaggy race. Demon recalls that other classes never met in the original game, making him wonder if teaming up with these NPCs is now mandatory. He really doesn't want to team up with them, thinking his edgy roleplay persona would make partying up way too awkward anyway. Since the game offers so much freedom, he figures teaming up isn't mandatory, but he decides to test them by coldly asking if they even know what shutting up means. Hearing this, the Inquisitor gets incredibly defensive, wondering if a noble priest is supposed to ignore a demon spawn, before quickly backtracking to say she just wanted to apologize. She squeezes her eyes shut, clearly overwhelmed by her own guilt and shame. Suddenly, she drops to her knees, declaring that mere words can never make up for the terrible insult she subjected him to. Clutching her chest, she shouts passionately that if a simple apology isn't enough, he is welcome to take her head. He just stands there in absolute silence, staring down at the dramatic priestess kneeling before him. Sweating bullets, Demon can only stare in sheer disbelief, genuinely wondering if this girl has completely lost her mind. He screams internally, insisting he just likes playing solo and is not some bloodthirsty murder machine. He looks down at the bowing Inquisitor, completely baffled by her extreme way of thinking. He wonders who taught her this before noticing even the Archmage is panicking. He realizes he needs to do something to stop her before things get worse. But if he backs down now, it will completely ruin his edgy roleplay persona. The Archmage looks over at him, sweating bullets under his intense, silent gaze. She trembles in fear as she prepares herself for his terrifying reaction. From the Archmage's point of view, Demon looks like an absolute monster. She steps in front of the Inquisitor and begs him to show some mercy. The Archmage explains the Inquisitor is naive and offers herself up for punishment instead. The Inquisitor immediately protests, shouting that the fault is entirely her own. The beast person mage begs for mercy, but the red-haired knight insists the responsibility is hers alone. Demon realizes the situation is hopeless and decides he has to solve it himself. Even though dealing with NPCs makes him uncomfortable, he finds the absurdity of the situation funny and decides to roll with it. Demon draws his glowing blue sword, reminding his opponent that he gave them a chance. He steps forward, declaring that they chose punishment instead of taking his offer. The Inquisitor watches in fear as Demon steps closer with his weapon drawn. She braces herself, closing her eyes tightly as Demon swings his arm toward her neck. She looks up in utter confusion at Demon, who stands silently under the moonlight. The Inquisitor falls to her knees, trembling in shock as she realizes she is still alive. He slices off her long red ponytail, leaving her staring at the severed hair in shock. She gasps in utter disbelief as she touches her newly shortened hair. She grits her teeth in frustration, unable to comprehend what just happened. She desperately demands to know why he did that as he calmly walks away. Internally, Demon is just thrilled that his edgy roleplay persona successfully spared their lives. He suddenly panics, realizing the older sister from the prologue also had that same hair and weapon. The Inquisitor watches him leave, still stunned that he is actually letting them go. Demon coldly warns her to look at her hair and watch her mouth from now on. He smugly thinks about saving her from her death flag, warning that next time her head will roll. The Archmage grabs the trembling knight while he smugly walks away, confident these high-tier characters will chase after him anyway. He happily skips down the street, eagerly anticipating whatever crazy event he might trigger next. Back at the scene, the stunned Inquisitor addresses the Archmage in a daze. She asks if that mysterious gentleman really had his body taken over by a demon, which the Archmage confirms. The Inquisitor realizes he must have gone through unimaginable suffering because of that dark presence. Clenching her fist, she imagines the immense hatred he had to endure to gain such overwhelming power. The Archmage points out that despite having the power to act on that hatred, he chose to walk away. She explains to the Inquisitor that choosing not to strike back is the ultimate form of mercy. She believes his incredible mental strength is what allowed him to completely suppress the demon inside him. She reflects on the sheer strength of his heart. She drops to her knees, realizing she still has a very long way to go. The Archmage tries to comfort her, saying it really can't be helped. But as the Archmage explains her lack of experience, the Inquisitor suddenly cuts her off with a loud realization. She springs back up, shouting that demon is absolutely necessary for their journey. She stands tall with a look of absolute determination on her face. The Archmage can only stare back at her in complete silence. She looks completely dumbfounded by the sudden outburst. Looking up at the night sky, the Archmage sighs at the heavens. Meanwhile, a system notification reveals there are only 2 days left until the full dive ends. The morning sun shines brightly over a peaceful, bustling town filled with quaint houses. The scene shifts to the next morning at another nearby inn. Inside, patrons are enjoying their hearty breakfast and chatting at various wooden tables. Suddenly, a gloved hand aggressively stabs a fork straight into a juicy steak. Demon glares ahead with a look of pure annoyance on his face. He looks up to find the Inquisitor and the Archmage standing right before him. He sarcastically asks if they took so long because they wanted to give him a sweet day off. Demon snaps, asking if they are deaf, but decides against flipping the table because his Korean soul respects food, while the Archmage begs him to listen. Refusing to hear another word, he abruptly stands up and turns his back on them. He coldly states that just looking at them is a waste of his time, leaving the Inquisitor completely speechless. The red-haired girl can only stare in shock as he prepares to walk away. Suddenly, she bows deeply and yells that she wants to learn from his generosity. She looks completely flustered and red-faced, leaving him standing there in absolute confusion. He starts panicking internally, wondering if he committed way too hard to his edgy roleplay act. She explains how she was taught to show mercy but completely failed to do so herself. Clenching her fists, she adds that he was different, because he constantly forgave her insults. With an angelic aura bursting behind her, she declares that she finally found her true path through him. Demon can only sweat nervously as he realizes things are taking a very weird turn. He looks completely defeated, realizing his peaceful solo gaming life is officially over. He admits defeat, realizing he has always had a massive weak spot for socially awkward, stubborn characters with a strong sense of justice. Recalling that priests were his favorite class even back in his old gaming days. In his mind, he is absolutely losing it over how incredibly cute she is, imagining himself happily patting her head while she looks completely confused. Back in reality, however, he forces himself to endure and maintain his cold, edgy persona without breaking character. His stern silence immediately makes the poor Inquisitor panic, wondering if she said something wrong or was rude to him again. Internally, Demon feels like he is getting struck by a bolt of pure cuteness from her adorable reaction. He manages to keep his cool exterior, coldly telling her that if her goal was to ruin his mood, it was an interesting attempt. Later, Demon confronts another traveler, dryly mocking their encounter as a novel way to attempt suicide. But before he can draw his blade to end the conversation, the traveler desperately shouts out the name of Satan. Revealing herself as the Archmage, the beast person yells out, asking if he would still draw his sword if they offered him the chance to kill Satan, the king of demons. This sudden proposition immediately catches Demon's attention, making him pause in surprise. He grips his dark sword and demands to know exactly what they mean by that. Hearing this, the two companions stand completely frozen under his terrifying gaze. As they look at each other, it turns out they both share the exact same thought. They realize his single glaring eye is radiating a level of killing intent unlike anything they've ever felt. It's incredibly clear to them that he hates demons more than anyone they've ever met. Since Satan's name was just mentioned, they know any lie will get them torn to shreds. But the Inquisitor doesn't hesitate. Instead, she stares straight ahead with her glowing green eyes, completely filled with resolve. She's ready to face whatever comes next because she believes her entire life exists only for the greater good. Standing before him in the quiet tavern, she reasons that if she tries to deceive him now, death would be a fitting punishment. He is absolutely thrilled, thinking it's epic that they're already getting some Satan lore. He can't contain his excitement, declaring that today's plot is absolutely peak. The title card displays the main logo of the series. The narrator explains that an Inquisitor originally meant someone who investigates matters of faith. In the game, however, it's the priest's third advancement, serving as agents who carry out the temple's will. The Archmage points out that even though the Inquisitor is quite young, there's a specific reason she left the temple. It turns out she received a divine revelation, declaring it's her destiny to defeat Satan. Since she can't do it alone, she was told to gather companions, which is why she first sought out the Archmage. The beast person admits they came looking for him again despite knowing it would annoy him, quickly cutting off her companion with a loud cough before she can ruin the mood. He can't help but grin, finding the red-haired priestess absolutely adorable and wondering if she was somehow tricked into tagging along. But then he stops and wonders how things ended up like this, since the player is usually the one who gets that kind of revelation. He starts to suspect that the entire story of this remake might actually revolve around priests. Seeing his intense expression, the nervous Archmage suddenly calls out to get his attention. She straight up asks him to join their cause and help them defeat Satan. Right on cue, a system notification pops up confirming this is indeed a main quest towards slaying the Demon King. The Archmage explains she did some research and found out he is a famous mercenary who never backs down from hunting demons. She reasons that if he manages to kill Satan, all the other demons in the land will surely retreat. The protagonist's older brother and head knight looks on in disbelief, questioning if someone like that is actually supposed to be a hero. She steps up and offers to accompany him to the temple if he needs absolute proof. She assures him that every temple will testify to her status, leaving him completely unsure of his next move. Demon looks down, repeating those words to himself as he processes the situation. He glares back up with a fierce look, warning them that they better be telling the truth. System notifications pop up confirming that the Inquisitor and the Archmage are now accompanying him, marking a step forward in his quest to slay the Demon King. A carriage travels through the quiet streets of the town as they begin their journey. Demon notes that he officially joined the subjugation squad and immediately departed the Tatara trading post. He recalls minor distractions along the way, like the innkeeper begging for another chance or people offering rewards. But he chose to ignore all of them, determined to stay in character and keep his focus entirely on the main quest. He glances sideways, feeling a bit uneasy about the situation. He wonders why she has been staring at him with those sparkling eyes for so long. Ever since they joined forces, she has been putting intense pressure on him with her gaze, even though he only ever insulted her. He figures that if this game had an affinity system, their relationship would definitely be at rock bottom. But as soon as he agreed to let them tag along, a system notification suddenly popped up. The screen explains the companion system, detailing how he can track them and issue orders based on their hidden affinity. He recalls how his edgy role-playing lines usually ruin his affinity with NPCs, especially when he tells them not to expect any friendly treatment. He wonders if her affinity is somehow set high just because she is an early-game character. She begins walking forward alone, her long white hair flowing behind her. He can't help but think that she is incredibly cute. Comparing her to a little kimchi dumpling, he reasons that cutting her hair made her look even more like a dumpling, and he finds her endless passion and strength adorable. He even starts feeling a strange, affectionate bond with her, almost like she is a child he raised himself. Suddenly, the Archmage speaks up, breaking his train of thought. She asks if he has any questions about their destination or the divine revelation they received. But Demon secretly panics, knowing he cannot ask because they are just game characters and he has no idea what the next quest area is. To keep up his edgy act, he coldly threatens to tear them apart if the revelation turns out to be a lie. He demands that they at least give him a proper heads up about what to expect if they are in their right minds. The Archmage smiles, interpreting his harsh words as a sign of deep trust. She figures he simply does not care about such trivial details anyway. As their carriage rolls through the forest, she explains they are heading to the temple to help with a demon extermination request. The Inquisitor explains that they are heading there to offer support separately from the main squad, as it is their holy duty to help those in need. Demon cuts her off immediately, coldly stating that he does not care about any of those circumstances. He demands to know what kind of demon they are dealing with and how many have been confirmed. When she admits they only know a demon appeared and must get the details at the temple, he mutters about how useless they are. A quest notification pops up, and although Demon notes it is not a main quest, he is fine with it as long as he makes progress. He calculates that he has about a day and a half left in full dive, realizing the slow carriage ride is going to waste a lot of time before deciding to take a nap. As he drifts off, he trusts his companions to wake him up once they finally arrive at their destination. The Inquisitor looks at him with a warm, blushing smile as he rests. The scene shifts back to the previous night, showing the Inquisitor praying alone in front of a large window. The Archmage knocks on the door and asks to come in, which she allows since they really need to talk. Once inside, she warns the young priestess about the heavy weight of her destiny and the danger of offering up her life so easily. Staring away, the Inquisitor admits she acted impulsively and would have been doomed if he hadn't shown mercy. But then she turns around, pointing out that she also came dangerously close to killing an innocent man herself. The Archmage looks down at her, reminding her that true justice is justified violence and must never be taken lightly. She solemnly recites that this caution is actually the 9th commandment. Clenching her hands, the Inquisitor shudders to think how many more innocents she might have harmed in her ignorance. Looking down at her severed hair, she questions if she even deserves to be a hero when she couldn't understand God's word, realizing she deserved to die for her past arrogance. She looks up into the light, feeling that his mercy has finally allowed her to take a step closer to her true destiny. She begins to wonder if Demon is actually acting like an apostle of God. She reasons that his actions make him a proxy who delivers divine teachings, even if he looks like a dark knight. With a gentle smile, she clasps her hands together and prays for God to grant him a peaceful sleep. She remains in deep prayer, surrounded by white flowers under the soft light. Meanwhile, a carriage travels along a dirt road surrounded by lush green trees under a bright blue sky. After 3 full days of traveling in this crazy game, Demon finally arrives at a quiet town under the moonlight, completely exhausted. He is absolutely losing his mind over how much real cash he just wasted on full dive fluid for this long travel time. He realizes he needs to speedrun his progress as fast possible with the little time he has left. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor pumps herself up, saying they should head to the temple without any more delays. But she blinks and realizes their edgy companion has already vanished into the distance ahead of them. She quickly runs after him, shouting for the Demon Knight to wait up so she can join. The Archmage sighs behind her, complaining that she is simply too old to keep up with this frantic pace. She slowly pulls her hood over her head to shield herself from the cool night air. She begins walking forward alone, her long white hair flowing behind her. She admits to herself that she has a terrible, uneasy feeling lingering deep in her heart. A short while later, black feathers drift down from the night sky over a massive, imposing castle. A mysterious figure in dark boots and a long coat steps forward onto the patterned floor. He stands tall with a glowing blue sword pointed directly at his chest. The warning comes to pass as a red-haired soldier spots him and screams in terror. The Inquisitor steps in front of Demon, shouting that he is not their enemy. A nearby priest recognizes the glowing mark on her hand as the legendary hero's crest. She swears on that sacred name that Demon is a victim, not a servant of evil. The surrounding crowd begins to whisper, doubting her judgment due to her youth and inexperience. The Archmage raises her ornate magical staff high into the air. She slams the staff onto the ground, releasing a shockwave of blue energy. The Archmage commands everyone to be silent and pay attention. She sternly asks the crowd why they have not lowered their weapons, as the hero commanded. The guards look at each other and nod, realizing they have no choice but to back down. One of them announces that since the envoy of God has spoken, they'll obey and lower their weapons. They immediately offer to guide the group inside, completely changing their attitude. The Archmage quietly asks Demon to bear with them since they didn't mean any harm, but he coldly replies that if they did, he would have killed them already. Internally, Demon is absolutely thrilled, thinking these misunderstanding events are the absolute best since the NPCs just resolved everything for him. Keeping up his edgy persona, he coolly tells them it's time to head inside. He secretly finds it pretty cute how both of his companions are walking on eggshells around him, though he knows he can't just play around forever. He admits to himself that the game is so immersive it's starting to make him feel tired, so he plans to leave the moment he gets the info he needs. As they enter the grand hall, a heavy, deep silence fills the night air. The bishop cuts the discussion short, declaring they have heard more than enough about the incident. He then suggests that Demon should head to the room they prepared since it is getting late. The bishop even offers to have meals sent directly to his room, which Demon immediately recognizes as a polite way of telling him to stay cooped up. He wonders if he is being too cynical, but reasons that anyone would think this way when every conversation feels like a battle of nerves. He admits to himself that the roleplay was fun at first, but pretending is starting to get exhausting. With a heavy sigh, he abruptly stands up from the table, startling the Inquisitor and the Archmage. Looking back at them with a cold glare, he flatly refuses their hospitality. He declares he would rather sleep on the bare ground than spend the night in a nest of hypocrites, leaving the bishop completely stunned. Just then, his system quest updates with a mission to track down the demon hiding in the village, and he realizes it is time to start investigating. As he turns to leave, the Inquisitor calls out to him in a panic. She desperately begs him to wait a moment as he walks away. The demon reacts with fury, abruptly forcing the Inquisitor's hand away. He glares back at her with a cold expression, warning her never to touch him so carelessly. Startled by his intense reaction, the Inquisitor quickly stammers out an apology. As she shrinks back, the Archmage steps up behind her and asks where he is going. Demon scoffs at the question, telling her she is asking the obvious. He turns away completely, declaring his intention to go kill the demon. He waves them off cheerfully, explaining he is going to speedrun this quest alone, because waiting for them would take forever. Determined not to be left behind, the Inquisitor drops to her knees and insists on going too. Behind her, the Archmage lets out a knowing, subtle smile. The Inquisitor looks completely shocked, realizing she has put the older woman to shame. The Archmage then smiles and suggests they get moving, which the Inquisitor eagerly agrees to. Watching them leave, the bishop is left utterly confused about their legendary titles. The Archmage politely thanks the bishop for his consideration as they walk away. She points out that their friend would never rest while a demon is right in front of them, leaving the bishop stunned. The two of them quickly run down the hallway, shouting for Demon to wait up. They call out to the Demon Knight as they try to catch up to him. Outside the window, a lone crow sits quietly on the ledge, watching the scene unfold. Suddenly, a whole flock of crows takes flight from the Grand Castle towers into the night sky. The crows fly high above the dark forest under the bright glow of the full moon. Demon accepts that they are moving forward as a party anyway. As he suggests finding a witness to gather information, Archmage cuts him off, saying there is no need. Archmage asks if he has a hunch about the demon, while Demon realizes she is just testing him. The Inquisitor steps up, eagerly asking to hear his esteemed opinion. She looks incredibly determined and cute, puffing out her cheeks like a little bun. Demon almost smiles like a proud dad, but maintains his cold persona and says it is hard to believe she is the hero. She admits her shortcomings, but firmly asks him to refrain from making such disrespectful remarks. Ignoring her protest, he gets straight to the point and asks what kind of demon is hiding here. He secretly admires her tactless dedication before Archmage reveals that the target is a Draugr, which makes perfect sense to the Inquisitor. Archmage suggests looking for a strong stench, and Demon points out that a nearby cemetery is the best place to search since Draugrs are born there. The Archmage praises the Inquisitor for her knowledge, but she humbly replies that she cannot compare to her or the Demon Knight. Demon struggles to suppress a proud fatherly smile and forces himself to focus on serious thoughts. He recalls that in the original game, this incident led to the corruption of the village temple. He wonders how things will play out in this remake version as they walk together. The Inquisitor suddenly stops as she catches a scent in the air. She alerts the group, announcing that she smells something strange nearby. She points down a dark, narrow alleyway, stating the smell is coming from inside. Demon reaches into his bag to pull out a magical lantern. He holds up the glowing lantern, ready to lead the way into the darkness. A mysterious man in the shadows mutters that everything changes from this moment on, leaving the Inquisitor completely shocked as she stares in disbelief. Suddenly, the entire situation begins to take a completely unexpected turn with this creepy figure. Demon holds up his glowing lantern, revealing a battered man slumped against the wall. Seeing the victim's state, the Inquisitor gasps in absolute horror. The Inquisitor immediately offers to fetch the guards, and the panicked Archmage urges her to go quickly. Demon realizes the terrible stench isn't just historical setting detail, but the foul trace of a passing Draugr. He kneels down beside the dying man to examine his condition. Setting his lantern aside, Demon quietly mutters that they were simply too late. He gently closes the victim's eyes, promising to take full revenge on the monster. The Inquisitor bows her head, softly offering a solemn prayer for the departed soul. She continues her quiet prayer as Demon stands silently by her side. He quietly admits to himself that while he doesn't believe in gods, having this kind of clear direction is actually pretty nice. As they move through the alley, the Archmage notes that the town guards will be arriving shortly to recover the victim's body. She begins channeling her magic, deducing from the strong scent of blood that the victim was killed just moments ago, and the Draugr can't be far. A massive glowing blue magic circle erupts in the narrow alleyway, illuminating the entire area with surging energy. The Archmage explains with glowing eyes that she is casting a tracking spell to pinpoint their target. She warns them that the spell won't last very long, but it will be more than enough to track the beast down. Joking about making an old woman run, she urges the Inquisitor to keep up, and the young knight eagerly agrees. Charging forward, the Inquisitor declares she will continuously purify the lingering demonic energy as they run. Watching them work, Demon realizes he won't get lost and thinks that while solo play is great for role-playing, having a party is incredibly convenient. He suddenly takes a sharp step forward, preparing to move. The Inquisitor curses in frustration as they chase after their target. They quickly realize they have run straight into a dead end. The Archmage points out that the Draugr seems to have passed right through the solid wall. She suggests finding high ground to look for another path, but Demon finds that approach too slow. Demon looks up, his mind already working on a different solution. He reasons that since this is just a game, he might as well try something reckless. The Archmage panics, realizing he is about to do something crazy again. With a sudden burst of power, Demon launches himself straight up into the air. He leaps effortlessly across the rooftops under the bright moonlight. He grabs the edge of the high roof with his heavy armored gauntlet. He leaps down gracefully from the ledge, descending toward the town below. He lands perfectly on the snowy ground in a dramatic three-point stance. The Inquisitor runs forward in shock, calling out to the Demon Knight. The Archmage watches him go, sighing at how incredibly reckless he is. They look down from the high balcony as Demon stands alone in the alley. Out of their sight, Demon breaks character and grins, thinking his jump was absolutely sick. He marvels at jumping without skills, loving the realistic wind and impact on his feet. He smugly wonders if he has a natural talent for parkour, completely getting ahead of himself. He realizes he needs to hurry up and find that demon before his tracking spell runs out. Looking down from the rooftops, he spots the glowing blue trail of the spell weaving through the town. He scoffs under the moonlight, calling the target a mere bug playing cheap tricks. But despite those tricks, he knows the chase is almost over. With a cold glare, he declares that this is as far as the creature goes. An explosive kickoff leaves a bright impact mark on the blue surface. He parkours across the rooftops, closing the distance in a flash of speed. As he gets closer, he lets out a dark, raspy chuckle. His grin widens as the thrill of the hunt completely takes over. He bursts into a maniacal laugh, fully embracing his edgy persona. He is absolutely thrilled, shouting about how much he loves this god-tier roleplay game. He plunges his sword into the ground, calling out for glory to the heavens as a bright light erupts. With a fierce look in his eyes, he vows to get revenge for the dead. A dark, swirling mist begins to rise from the ground below. A terrifying Draugr emerges from the shadows, but Demon calmly declares that this pathetic game of tag ends here. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks, completely caught off guard by something. He complains that the NPCs didn't load. The smell is awful, and the 3D perspective makes his attack timing difficult. While waiting to see if his party NPCs will load, he is suddenly approached by a mysterious voice addressing him as Gretchen. The stranger steps forward, admitting he was just trying to figure out how to get rid of those annoying heretics. The hooded figure reveals himself as a demon contractor, joyfully declaring that the king is looking for Gretchen. Demon is completely thrown off by this sudden turn of events. He wonders what kind of king would be calling for him, and if this guy has some sort of death wish. He has absolutely no idea how to react to this bizarre development. The contractor offers to rescue him from the heretics so they can go slaughter people, leaving Demon racking his brain trying to remember the name Gretchen. Suddenly, it clicks, and he realizes with horror that he has somehow ended up on the demon worshipper route. A glowing system message appears, confirming that he has finally made his choice. Suddenly, chains shatter as an inhuman power awakens within him. The system alerts him that he has just acquired knowledge that doesn't belong to humans. Freed from the shackles of humanity, he awakens to a terrifying new power as wings burst from his back. The system declares that he is now on the path to becoming a true demon knight. Demon wonders how this feels, but decides to stick to his current persona for now when a hooded figure addresses him as Lord Gretchen. A man with white hair swings his massive sword downward with incredible force. Calling out his breaker skill, he sends a shockwave through the street, wondering if he actually managed to hit his target. But he quickly realizes the contractor used the Draugr as a meat shield to survive the blast. The terrified contractor cowers in fear, completely cornered by the overwhelming power. Desperate to live, the man begs Gretchen for forgiveness, admitting he completely overstepped his bounds by claiming he was captured. Demon scoffs at the plea, telling him he won't find salvation even in hell, prompting the panicked contractor to call for his Draugr. A massive, heavily armored Draugr knight materializes in front of Demon, officially locking on as his next target. Demon leaps forward, dismissing the enemy's attack as nothing but a paltry trick. Demon roars at the monster to get out of his way as he slashes right through it. He complains about hating amorphous monsters since his sword felt absolutely nothing, making this buffed Draugr incredibly annoying to handle. Demon decides it would be much easier to just take out the contractor first. Besides, he realizes this is the perfect opportunity to test out a new trick. He swings his sword, sending a powerful purple slash against his massive opponent. He realizes that when he used his breaker skill earlier, its effect actually carried over to his next attack. Since it stayed active even without a straight downward strike, he figures he can use this to his advantage. With a fierce grin, he shouts the skill name as he goes in for the kill, completely obliterating the giant armored monster. As the dark smoke clears, he stands victorious over the quiet village. A system notification pops up, confirming the Draugr is dead and updating his quest to capture the contractor. He mutters that the annoying obstacle is finally out of the way. Turning his cold gaze to the trembling cultist, he says it's time for judgment. The terrified contractor stammers that he never meant to mess with the Mabel merchant group, swearing he would have stayed far away if he knew Lord Gretchen had his eyes on them. Demon silently draws his sword, realizing these are the very guys who forced him to grind from the start, while the contractor desperately tries to plead with him. The contractor panics even more, warning that their target is no ordinary heretic, but the most threatening existence of all, a hero. An older man with white hair notes that bringing that head to the king would please him. But he is suddenly cut off by someone shouting for the demon knight. The blue-haired contractor turns around in shock, cursing under his breath as he realizes a heretic has arrived. Demon is actually thrilled since torturing the guy for info would have ruined his roleplay concept, so he cheerfully holds up a welcome sign and tells them they're too slow. The Inquisitor brandishes her weapon, demanding to know if this person is a sinner who sold their body and soul to a demon. A blinding light erupts as someone declares they will join the demon knight, leaving the enemy groaning in pain. The hooded man is completely shocked, demanding to know why he is doing this. He screams, asking why Gretchen is betraying them, but Demon just casually replies he has no idea. He reasons that he does not even know who Gretchen is, expecting the game story to explain it later. With a cheerful smile, Demon casually tells his opponent to just go ahead and die. Demon gives a thumbs down with a bright, mocking grin on his face. A man with an eye patch grins menacingly as his gauntleted hand swings a red sword. Demon snaps, shouting that a piece of vermin like him has no right to ask for a reason. He commands the enemy to apologize with his death as dark magic surges under the moon. The dark journey continues as they prepare for their next move. Inside, the Archmage and the Knights march down the palace hallway to begin their investigation. But back in the shadows, Demon quietly watches them walk away. Just then, the Inquisitor glances back, feeling like someone's watching. Moments later, Demon confronts the demon contractor, noting that the guys somehow managed to survive. But before he can do anything, glowing chains wrap around him as the Archmage corners him. Demon gets annoyed and asks her if she is trying to get in his way, but she quickly tells him to calm down because capturing the target alive is way more useful than just killing them. She explains that a Draugr is no ordinary demon and likely has a backer, urging him to control his anger, while he casually claims he was just trying to lower its health first for an easy capture. A system window pops up to confirm that killing the target will fail the capture, which he reads aloud as he walks away. He realizes this was an event dialogue triggered by the conversation and notes how many cool new systems the remake has added. But then, he stops in his tracks as he notices a strange constant noise that has been ringing for a while. Suddenly, his vision is completely flooded by red warning screens showing that his health is continuously dropping. Demon really wanted to tag along and watch the interrogation of the contractor, but the deeper he went into the temple, the more warning windows piled up, forcing him to turn around and walk away. He wonders if the temple ban is because of the demon residing in his arm, figuring it is probably foreshadowing for later. Giving him the priest route as a main quest, while banning him from temples makes the demon knight difficulty insanely high. Instead of complaining, a wild grin spreads across his face because he actually loves a brutal challenge. He reasons that true pros roleplay, but warns that playing a role badly means nobody will ever party with you. With a system like this, he begins to worry if he is stuck playing with NPCs until the very end. He feels a bit lonely and bored now that the others are gone, leaving him with nothing to do. Suddenly, a system notification pops up, directing him to talk to the bishop to find the evil hiding in the village. He realizes that the main quest will only progress after the interrogation is finished. As he wonders how to kill some time, a voice suddenly calls out to him as the Demon Knight. It turns out to be the Inquisitor, running up to him and asking to tag along. He is completely baffled, wondering if she just spawns nearby every single time he thinks of her. Trying to stay focused, he asks her what is supposed to happen with the interrogation. She explains that having a hero interrogate a demon worshipper directly would only feel like a reward to them, so the Archmage sent her to accompany him instead. He immediately sees through it, realizing the Archmage just pawned her off on him like a babysitter. She cheerfully asks if he has any other business to take care of while they walk. He can only curse his luck under his breath as he gets dragged into babysitting duty. He asks her if they only hunt down demons when someone hands them the information on a silver platter, completely catching her off guard. She stands there in absolute shock, her eyes wide as his blunt words sink in. Suddenly, she gets stars in her eyes and praises his profound wisdom, while he silently reminds himself he is just trying to level up. He sighs, realizing she is exactly like one of those unconditionally praising NPCs that games force on you early on. He thinks about how she looks like a cute, talkative little dumpling, but her constant energy is starting to wear on him. Even though she is adorable, he finds her incredibly burdensome to deal with as an introvert. He mocks his own fickle heart for wanting company earlier, just as she points out that gathering clues at night will be tough. To keep things moving, he bluntly announces that he is heading straight to the Adventurer Guild. She immediately gasps in awe, praising his genius idea to look for demon-related quests there. He cries inside because his strict roleplay rules force him to act cold, even though he actually appreciates her support. They arrive at a brightly lit building standing out in the quiet night. It turns out they've finally made it to the Adventurer Guild in Soman. Once inside, she is seriously impressed, thinking it's amazing how they can use the guild like this. Demon completely agrees, muttering that real learning happens out in the world before demanding any requests about demons. The clerk behind the counter checks his token, but warns him that demon quests are rare, offering one about a suspected demon instead. Demon doesn't want to waste time and demands to see the request form himself. That surprises the clerk, who didn't expect him to read, but he hands over the paper detailing a series of mysterious deaths with a massive reward. After scanning the details, Demon casually declares that this case is already resolved, leaving the clerk completely baffled. But deep down, he's actually panicking about that $500,000 reward, desperately wondering if the temple is going to steal his prize money. She asks the clerk if he has any information about people suddenly disappearing or acting strangely. She adds that even simple rumors would help, but the clerk is completely distracted when he notices their adventurer tokens and realizes who they are. At first, the clerk casually tells them they should just look around themselves or visit an information guild if they are only looking for rumors. But his attitude completely shifts as he stares at the tokens, recognizing them as a heresy inquisitor and the legendary sage of the magic tower. Terrified, the clerk immediately offers to try and recall memories from his mother's womb, making Demon realize how powerful fame really is in this world. Demon actually feels a bit sorry for the poor guy, who was just doing his night duty when these terrifying VIP guests barged in. Adjusting his glasses, the clerk nervously starts to speak, claiming that what he knows is nothing major. He explains that adventurers have noticed a sudden drop in the number of pickpockets lately, which catches the Archmage off guard. He adds that there aren't many beggars left on the streets either, making him wonder if some terrible disease is spreading through the slums. The clerk quickly clarifies that he doesn't pay much attention to that area, so none of this is confirmed information. But before he can even finish asking if that is enough, the Inquisitor slams her fist on the desk in absolute fury. She is absolutely furious that there are still wicked people in the city who have forgotten God's grace. She looks like an angry, steaming little dumpling to him as he just watches her outburst with a completely blank face. He tells her to calm down, realizing this whole setup is obviously a quest hook and that more demons must be lurking around. The local clerk is visibly shaken by the mention of demons in his city, while the Archmage agrees that the matter is well worth investigating. She asks the clerk to contact the temple if he finds any more relevant information, and he nervously agrees. Demon secretly pities the poor clerk for getting saddled with extra work during his night shift, but quickly decides it is not his problem. He is just glad the clerk is made of pixels and not a real miserable office worker before turning to leave as the Inquisitor calls out to him. Without stopping, Demon bluntly states that he is heading straight to the slums. The Archmage notes that the slums are where all the pickpockets and beggars gather, and eagerly tells the startled Inquisitor that they should follow him. The Inquisitor is deeply moved, feeling like she is constantly learning valuable lessons from his decisive actions. She runs after him into the night, calling out and begging the Demon Knight to let them tag along. He realizes his draining health in the temple is foreshadowing a future clash with them. An angry cleric charges forward, furious at the perceived disrespect. He gets dramatic, already feeling sad about the tragic path ahead. He admits a cool cutscene will come out of it, but reminds himself nothing has actually happened yet. Deciding to stop worrying, he resolves to just enjoy the ride when the time comes. Right on cue, a system notification pops up with an ominously named new quest. The Inquisitor walks closely behind Demon as they head toward their next destination. She curiously asks if he already knows the way to the local slums. Demon looks back with his usual cold expression, annoyed by her constant questions. He gives a vague excuse about slums being the same everywhere, keeping his minimap cheat a secret while she eagerly promises to learn from him. He notes that hostile humans, basically humanoid monsters, show up as red dots on his minimap, but he decides to brush it aside for now. He glances sideways with a sharp, serious look in his eye. He worries that she is going to have a really bad synergy with a rough place like the slums. As their shadows stretch across the wooden rooftops, he can only hope that everything will actually turn out fine. But the moment they finally arrive at the slums, Demon is already losing his temper over what he just heard. It turns out the Inquisitor's stubbornness is the absolute least of their worries right now. She cornered a terrified, heavy-set local and demanded that he swear to God and speak the absolute truth. Brandishing her massive weapon, the Inquisitor furiously demands to know if he is absolutely certain the temple took them. The story flashes back to a while ago, showing the group walking through the dark slums. They keep their guard up as they navigate the narrow, suspicious alleyways. The Inquisitor notes the strange atmosphere, and Demon confirms the minimap is swarming with monsters. He quietly ponders their situation as they continue deeper into the area. Suddenly, a young boy bumps right into Demon in the middle of the street. The boy quickly apologizes and tries to keep moving past him, but Demon grabs the kid's arm, praising his courage for trying to pickpocket him. Holding him firmly, he coldly warns the young thief that cooperating is the only way to keep his wrist intact. Internally, however, he is incredibly excited, celebrating that he predicted this exact situation and even prepared his cool lines in advance. After all, RPG systems usually put clear markers over targets so players can easily spot them in a crowd. But when there are no markers, it just means the targets will actively seek you out instead. Demon reveals he baited the trap by taking his coin pouch out of his inventory, leaving the thief cursing her terrible luck. Suddenly, the Inquisitor steps in, raising her heavy weapon over the captured thief with an intense glare. A gloved hand suddenly grips her shoulder, stopping her from swinging her weapon. She recites the strict doctrine, shouting that thieves deserve to have their hands severed. But a calm voice suddenly calls out to stop her before she can swing. The Archmage places a hand on her shoulder, gently explaining that rules shouldn't be applied blindly to every single situation. The Inquisitor protests, arguing that they just caught a sinner trying to commit a crime right in front of them. She gently chimes in, reminding her that they learned from the Demon Knight himself that mercy is sometimes necessary. Asking if she didn't promise to learn from his mercy, she advises her to be open to learning instead of acting so hastily. As she speaks, an incredibly holy, glowing image of a Buddha-like figure suddenly appears behind her. The Inquisitor reluctantly agrees to back down, while Demon is left completely baffled, wondering why a literal Buddha just flashed behind her and if that's even okay for a priest. The captured thief angrily demands to know how long they're going to hold him, snapping Demon back to reality. He tells the guy to lead them straight to the boss of the local pickpockets. After a few twists and turns, they finally track down the leader, known as the head thief. The Inquisitor immediately demands to know if the temple really took the missing people. And the terrified leader swears it is true, wondering why they are even asking. He points out that the ones who took them away for reformation looked exactly like her own kind. This accusation absolutely outrages her, and she immediately denounces it as blasphemy. She screams that criminal reformation is strictly regulated by the Grand Temple, but Demon dryly asks if that is really the main issue here. The Archmage tries to calm her down by saying that is not the important part, which only makes the Inquisitor yell louder. Meanwhile, Demon quietly realizes that this situation is turning into something much bigger than a simple side quest. He finally understands why the temple is so central to the Demon Knight route. realizing the main story is officially starting. Stepping forward, Demon demands to know exactly when this started and how many people have been taken. The terrified local stammers that they started coming about a month ago, taking just 1 or 2 people at a time, very quietly. He explains that people are being dragged away in secret, comparing it to human trafficking. Though he quickly backtracks and claims it was just a metaphor, Demon realizes they have just obtained undeniable proof. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor is completely taken aback by the mention of people being dragged away. The Archmage presses the local, who nervously confirms this happens regularly right under the Heresy Inquisitor's noses. The local adds that he has been warning everyone to stay inside during those specific patrol times. The Archmage begins to piece together a dark possibility from his words. She wonders in horror if these missing people are actually being used as sacrifices for a demon. The grim realization hangs heavily in the air as the group processes the dark truth. The Inquisitor snaps, furiously defending the church and claiming they would never do such a thing. Demon scoffs at her denial, calling her absolute trust in the church completely naive. As they argue, a gloved hand rests quietly on a lap, tapping impatiently. Nearby, she clenches her fist with a furious look, muttering that anything can happen whether they believe it or not. Demon, on the other hand, absolutely loves this kind of drama, thinking there is nothing better than seeing a protagonist world completely shatter. He figures it's tough on a kid, but that's what makes characters multi-dimensional, before stepping forward to demand where the victims were taken. The terrified bald man stammers that he only gets reports from the local kids and really has no clue. Suddenly, Demon speaks up with a serious look, claiming that he actually knows the answer. The Archmage notices the captive girl hasn't run away yet, despite being unbound, and the girl admits she might know someone with information. She insists that if demons are involved, it has to be a pretty big deal. But as she speaks, Demon silently walks right up to her, towering over her with a menacing stare. Terrified by his sudden proximity, she breaks into a cold sweat and nervously asks what he wants. He suddenly flashes a bright, cheerful smile, telling her how much he loves admirable characters like her, though his expression instantly turns cold again. She nervously tells them to lead the way, clearly intimidated by his sudden shift in attitude. As they set off, crows gather in the dark, blood-soaked streets of the slums to watch their investigation begin. The guide leads Demon, the Inquisitor, and the Archmage deeper into the gloomy, rundown neighborhood. She warns them that they are now entering the real, dangerous back alleys of the slums. She strictly advises them never to draw their weapons if they want to get any useful information. She points out that this is especially true for the Inquisitor, since the locals absolutely despise anyone from the temple. The Inquisitor scoffs, declaring she has no interest in cooperating with a thief anyway. The guide snaps back, insisting she is only helping because this is important, and she doesn't want to get caught in their mess. Demon finds her tsundere attitude surprisingly cute, comparing her behavior to a spiteful cat. He then wonders if using such feline metaphors is actually considered rude in a world where beast people exist. As they continue through the dark streets, a mysterious hooded figure watches them from a rooftop above. Suddenly, a system notification alerts Demon that a hostile entity is lurking within 20 meters. Suddenly, a system notification pops up warning Demon that a hostile entity is within 20 meters. The Inquisitor yells at him, demanding to know why he drew his sword when she told him not to. Demon calmly replies that if she wants him to keep his weapon sheathed, she should look up. Up on the roof, a hooded figure looks down and tells them to put away their weapons first. The mysterious figure smiles from the shadows of his hood, amused by the confrontation. He praises Demon's quick reflexes before leaping down from the high rooftop. The green-haired man lands gracefully on the street below, his white cloak fluttering behind him. He points out Demon's split-colored hair and the gauntlet on his arm. Noting the eye patch over his right eye, the stranger says there is no way he would ever mistake his identity. This hooded stranger suddenly greets him, prompting the Archmage to ask if they know each other. He is completely caught off guard by this sudden encounter. Searching his memory, he wonders if this guy is part of the game's lore since he doesn't remember him from his backstory. The hooded man quickly tells him not to get the wrong idea, explaining he only knows him because he's famous, which makes Demon realize it's just a built-in setting before asking what he wants. Demon coldly asks if the guy expects a compliment just for recognizing him. The green-haired man laughs it off, saying he's actually the one who wants to know what they are doing here. He narrows his eyes, asking what could possibly bring them all the way out to this place. He mockingly asks if Demon is planning to help with the kidnappings, since he brought the church's people along, immediately making the Inquisitor snap. The dark-haired girl panics, insisting that can't be true since Demon claimed he was here to investigate the disappearances. Meanwhile, Demon is just amusedly comparing the angry girls to hissing cats, though the presence of an actual beast person nearby makes him second-guess his analogy. The young guide then blurts out that the situation might actually be related to demons. Hearing this, the hooded man is shocked and asks if demons took the kids. He starts putting the pieces together, realizing the terrifying implications. He wonders if the temple is involved, but Demon reminds him they are just there to find the truth. The Archmage steps in, acknowledging that public trust in the temple has completely hit rock bottom. She pleads for his cooperation to help them prevent any more innocent casualties. The hooded man stands in silence, his tail twitching as he carefully weighs his options. He narrows his bright green eyes, deeply considering the group's request. Suddenly, the hooded man snaps his fingers to signal someone hiding nearby. He orders his hidden subordinate to go and report this new information immediately. Back in the shadows, a subordinate asks him if he's really going to lead the group in person. He confidently replies that he can easily get himself out of any trouble, so his subordinate nods in agreement. Suddenly, a new quest window pops up for Demon, making him wonder if this man is actually a major NPC running the local information guild. Demon tries to remember where he's seen this guy before, but before he can think, the guide tells them to keep up because he's not waiting around. With a sudden burst of speed, the guide dashes ahead, leaving the group to quickly follow. Running through the dark streets, the Archmage grumbles about having to dash around like this at her old age, but she promises not to be a burden and casts a haste spell, giving the Inquisitor and a very pleased Demon a massive speed buff. He mutters to himself that this is turning out to be quite a massive quest. He looks down with a serious expression, deeply lost in his thoughts. He wonders if he can actually pull this off before his full dive time runs out. The group runs quickly down the dark, narrow streets of the slums. The scene shifts to the commercial district under a bright full moon. They quietly navigate the empty stone alleyways of the town. Their green-haired guide stops and points out that they have finally arrived. The Inquisitor is completely baffled, questioning if they really brought the victims here. She stares in disbelief at what looks like a perfectly ordinary vegetable shop. Demon immediately senses a barrier, noting it was cast by someone highly skilled. The guide praises his senses and confirms there is a powerful barrier in the cellar. He notices a new quest update popping up, confirming they've finally reached the right location. When the Archmage asks how they'll get inside, he points out that breaking the concealment barrier will be easy since the quest doesn't require stealth. Their guide is completely shocked when he casually announces he's just going to walk right in. The guide warns him that guards will swarm them, but Demon coldly replies that it's not his problem. Demon draws his sword, declaring that kidnapping is far worse than trespassing, and tells anyone who's scared to stay back. With his sword drawn, Demon confidently leads the way forward, while the others reluctantly follow behind him. In reality, Demon is just exhausted and internally admits he was only saying whatever random dramatic lines came to mind. He runs ahead down the narrow alleyway, casually assuming that since his companions are NPCs, they will naturally follow his lead. Watching him charge off, the guide asks in disbelief if he is always this reckless. The Archmage chuckles softly, admitting that they actually met less than a week ago themselves. The Inquisitor looks on with intense green eyes, stating she believes he has the strength and conviction to back up his actions. She tightly grips her heavy mace, her resolve hardening as she prepares for the coming confrontation. She reveals to the guide that just yesterday they detained a real demon contractor inside the temple. The guide is completely shocked to hear about a real demon contractor, but the Inquisitor quickly confirms it and prepares to explain more. She admits she hates to believe it, but if the temple is indeed colluding with a contractor to gather sacrifices, the situation is dire. Realizing the dark truth of what is happening to the missing people, the guide breaks into a cold sweat and mutters that they are out of time. The Inquisitor tells the guide to go hide if he is scared, thanking him for doing his part by leading them this far. As she charges forward with her shield raised, the Archmage praises her growing perspective, which she attributes to watching the Demon Knight. They watch as their guide walks ahead of them. He clutches his head in frustration, wondering how they can just barge in without any preparation. He glances back with a look of pure dread. Realizing they are hopeless, he takes off running, crying out that he's going to die way too young. Meanwhile, Demon stands among scattered vegetables, calling out to his companions. He looks back with a sigh, asking if they're really not coming with him. It turns out he's already tied up the cultists and prepped everything to head down to the cellar. Demon breaks open the entrance and spots a hidden underground passage leading down. He thinks this feels like a perfect boss battle area to clear before logging out. While the Archmage and the guide marvel at how quickly he subdued all the enemies, Demon tells them to back out now if they are getting cold feet, muttering that he has been waiting for this. The Inquisitor calls out for him to wait as he heads down the stairs. As he descends, Demon senses something strange and wonders what is going on. He describes it as a weird tickling sensation that makes him pause. The Inquisitor immediately recognizes it, warning him that she can feel a powerful demonic energy coming from below. She urges everyone to hurry up because the cultists must be planning something terrible down there. The Archmage quickly casts a haste spell to speed up their descent into the darkness. As they rush down, he realizes this is his very first time fighting in a party in this game. He wonders how realistically the system has actually implemented these NPC companions. He is actually looking forward to seeing how they perform as they descend further. The group rushes down a dark, narrow flight of stairs leading deep underground. A system notification confirms they have entered the Somon hidden underground passage. They sprint through the glowing blue corridor toward a door at the end. Demon kicks the heavy door open, bursting into the hidden chamber with his party. The cultists inside panic as their summoning ritual is suddenly interrupted. Inside the cellar, the hooded cultist panics, wondering why these intruders had to show up right now. He realizes the legendary figure has arrived, while the others brace themselves for the clash. The Inquisitor charges in with a shout, declaring herself as their executioner. Desperate, the cultist orders his men to buy some time so they can hold out just a bit longer. He casts a dark spell, commanding the dead to rise. Skeletons crawl out of the ground as low-grade demons, answering the call as the slaves of hell. The Archmage asks their green-haired guide to cover her while she prepares to cast a spell, and he confidently agrees. Charging straight into the fray, the Inquisitor yells that God is on her side. Demon charges forward with a massive shield as his red-haired companion looks back in shock. Looking completely focused, Demon quietly dedicates the coming victory to his sword. He then launches a devastating dark attack on the monsters, offering glory to the heavens. Demon vows that he won't let their front line be breached, leaving the Inquisitor completely stunned by his power. Flustered by his overwhelming strength, she screams that while he's amazing, this is just way too much. She stares ahead with intense determination, admitting that she might still have a lot to learn. But she proudly declares that she was trained to hold the front line with her shield as she charges forward. Demon watches her fight but complains that the enemies she is taking down do not give him any experience points. He quickly shifts his focus back to the quest at hand, while keeping his guard up against the surrounding skeletons. The cultist leader looks on in absolute shock, realizing that his carefully prepared sacrifices are going to waste. He desperately commands the darkness to bring death to the land, cursing Gretchen for the ultimate betrayal. The cultist orders his dark forces to make Demon their very first sacrifice as the dark energy surges forward. The Archmage and the guide cry out in panic as he gets pulled into a dark, swirling vortex, leaving the Inquisitor completely stunned. Desperate to help, she screams his name and charges forward, swinging her glowing sword to break him free from the dark magic. But it's too late, as the dark energy shoots him straight up into the air, completely out of her reach. Instead of falling, he lands gracefully right in the center of the swirling purple abyss, looking completely unfazed. Seeing him stand his ground, the Inquisitor gasps in awe, realizing he had a plan all along. He looks down at the horde of monsters surrounding him with a confident smirk. He mutters that this actually worked out perfectly, drawing his sword to wipe them all out in a single blow. He plunges his sword down, calling out to the ground. Instantly, the strike hits with a massive explosion, shattering the stone floor. Watching the destruction, the Inquisitor is completely blown away by his unbelievable strength. She can only brace herself behind her shield as the shockwave rips through the area. Meanwhile, a terrified cultist nearby panics, instantly recognizing him as Gretchen. Hearing this, Demon slowly turns his head, casting a chilling glare at his target. The sheer pressure of his gaze is so intense that the young man's eyes begin to bleed as he screams in pure terror. Terrified skeletons desperately order each other to kill him, while a panicked cultist screams at him to stay back. The cultist flees in absolute terror, begging for someone to save him because he does not want to die. Another hooded figure panics as the fleeing cultist runs directly toward their position. Demon glares coldly, telling his enemies to fall into the deepest part of hell. Calling them vermin, Demon ruthlessly slashes through the cultists with dark, sweeping energy. The defeated cultists lie dead on the stone floor, drenched in pools of their own blood. A glowing red magic circle begins to manifest beneath the fallen bodies. Demon sighs in relief, thinking he was totally a goner after that crazy fight. He reflects on the short but intense solo battle he just survived, which left him with low health but a powerful new skill. Looking down at his glowing purple sword, he's amazed by how incredibly strong this new skill is right at the start. But this makes him realize the game's difficulty must be absolutely brutal if they're handing out such overpowered skills for free. Shaking off his worries, he turns around and wonders what the rest of his party members are up to. Right on cue, a hand tightly grips a golden mace as bright flames erupt all around it. It turns out the Inquisitor is charging headfirst into the fray, determined to fulfill her own role. She screams that she will do her duty, delivering a brutal strike to a cultist's face and telling him to face judgment. The green-haired guide yells back at her, demanding to know how much longer they have to keep covering for her. But she just smiles confidently, replying that she was just about to finally pull her own weight. She raises her staff high, casting a massive spell while warning everyone to take cover immediately. With a fierce shout, she commands her magic to completely eradicate the evil beings in front of them. The blue flames engulf the cultists, leaving them screaming in agony as they burn alive. Demon watches the destruction, suddenly wondering if he accidentally said his thoughts out loud, and guilt tripped them into acting. Meanwhile, the guide crouches down in awe, completely amazed by the incredible power of the allies who have joined them. The guide looks down with a serious expression. He asks if that's all, while the Inquisitor reports they've wiped out all the remnants but wishes they could have captured someone alive. Demon stands there silently, looking down at the ground. He spots a survivor on the bloody floor and notes that there's a perfect target right at his feet. The bleeding cultist groans under his boot, warning him that he'll regret this, and calling him Gretchen. The dying man struggles to finish his threat as Demon reaches down to grab him. Demon tells the worm to shut his mouth. He snaps that his name isn't something to be spoken by trash like him. He lifts the bloody cultist up by his collar, staring coldly into his eyes. Instead of showing fear, the dying cultist lets out a creepy, bloody grin. The cultist laughs maniacally, shouting that everything is going according to plan and warning Demon not to forget their fate. The dying cultist reaches out his bloody hand, gasping that their king still desires him. Suddenly, blood splatters everywhere as the Inquisitor screams for him to dodge. Demon senses a massive surge of demonic energy right before a red magic circle erupts beneath him. A violent pillar of red energy blasts Demon high into the air. The Inquisitor leaps forward and uses her shield to block the devastating blast. She asks if he is okay, but Demon just complains about his back despite lowering his pain settings. Looking at the massive threat, the green-haired guide laughs nervously and wonders what kind of nonsense they've gotten into. He asks if they can even handle this on their own, while a system prompt reveals the monster is a knocker, a venomous demon that eats humans. Demon realizes this was a mandatory event anyway since he didn't get a quest to stop the summoning. The massive beast glares at the party through its giant yellow eye before letting out a deafening roar. It then lunges straight down at the group with terrifying speed, ready to tear them apart. Seeing the beast charge, the Inquisitor steps forward and yells for everyone to get behind her. The Archmage gasps in shock, calling out to the Lord as the massive threat closes in. A red-haired man raises his glowing shield to protect his companions watching from behind. With her shield raised, the Inquisitor prays for the strength to defy evil and protect her allies. She holds her ground, blocking a massive attack from the giant beast with her shield. She screams out, pouring every ounce of her strength into holding the monster back. Demon is genuinely impressed by her incredible tanking ability, noting how insane her raw muscle power is. But then his damage dealer brain kicks in, and he wonders why she didn't just jump out of the way. Meanwhile, their green-haired guide panics and asks the Archmage if this beast has any weaknesses they can exploit. She warns him that this is a knocker, a demon with deadly poison in its teeth. As the Archmage is about to explain its weakness, Demon decides it's time to do his part. Since she did such a great job tanking, he figures he should finally do his job as the damage dealer and charges forward. Just as he leaps into action, the Archmage screams out that the monster's weak point is its head. He's mid-air, bringing his sword down as his tattered cloak billows around him. His eye suddenly flashes with a surge of crackling purple energy. He calls out his breaker skill, unleashing a massive pillar of dark purple energy that tears upwards. Nearby, the Archmage screams in terror as the crimson spray covers her and her companion. The Inquisitor stands frozen in shock as a sudden spray of blood splatters right before her eyes. Even Demon himself looks completely baffled by the sudden, massive explosion of blood. Demon lands a devastating blow, slicing clean through the massive beast and leaving it bleeding out on the floor. The cultists are left completely speechless, unable to comprehend how he cut through scales that are supposed to be as hard as steel with a single strike. Even Demon himself is losing his mind over how ridiculously overpowered his own attack was. He remembers that normal players enjoy the challenge of slowly chipping away at a boss's health bar and dealing with its complex mechanics. But nobody expects the boss's head to just fly off in one hit like this. In the original game, this monster was never supposed to die from a single blow, making him wonder what the developers were even thinking. As he stares at the fallen beast, he can't help but worry if some hidden second phase is about to trigger. He stands perfectly still as a massive tail sweeps past him. Right after, the green-haired guide leaps in to block the danger, playfully warning him to watch his blind spots. Demon realizes he got distracted by a severed head and silently thanks the NPC for the quick save. But as he looks closer at the guide in the light, he notices something very familiar about him. He recognizes the guide's look as the official thief class appearance, while the nervous guide laughs it off, hoping he didn't overstep. Terrified by Demon's intense glare, the guide stammers and promises to back off immediately. Demon decides to let it go for now, figuring he can decide whether to let him join the party later. He decides it is time to finish off this disgusting beast, which the game system identifies as Headless Nukel, a demon attempting its final struggle. He explains that while NPCs think the head is the weak point, the actual weak spot is the annoying inverted scale. This backward-growing scale is a classic weak point for Oriental dragons, and several monsters in this game share the same trait. The scale only reveals itself after chipping away at the monster's health, making its struggle to survive completely pointless. Ready to end this, Demon decides to skip the flashy piercing skills and simply activates his ground skill to finish it off. He plunges his glowing sword straight down, unleashing a massive burst of purple energy that pierces the monster's weak point. He stares blankly as the dust begins to settle around him. He is completely baffled by what just happened. Blood splatters stain the cold stone floor of the ruined chamber. Demon stands over the dissolving remains of the giant beast. He wonders what that skill was, since he definitely meant to use Ground Crash. He recalls investing all his points into Ground Crash, leaving him unable to learn a piercing skill, yet his wish for one somehow triggered a bugged attack just as someone screams out for Gretchen. The Inquisitor holds down a struggling cultist who screams in anger about betraying the king. The Archmage then asks the Demon Knight if he wants to execute the prisoner himself. Demon decides to finish this quest first and submit a bug report once he logs out, noting there is still one enemy left. He glares coldly at the prisoner, telling him to keep babbling. He looms over his target, warning him that he is about to face his absolute wrath. The terrified cultist can only let out a pathetic shriek as a glowing red blade draws near. He admits he is curious to see what happens, but the Archmage suddenly steps in to ask if he is going to interfere again. She calmly requests that he kill the man as cleanly as possible so they can submit the body as evidence to the temple. She urges him to hurry up, complaining that the annoying captive has been talking way too much. Demon stares down coldly, completely unfazed by the situation. With a simple grunt, he swiftly decapitates the cultist with a single, clean strike. As the head rolls away, Demon suggests they hurry and bring the others to console the souls of the sacrifices. Just then, their green-haired guide suddenly speaks up to get their attention. The Archmage steps forward and asks if she can request a small favor. The green-haired guide chimes in, explaining that they want to keep at least one of the cultists alive. He looks out over the bloody scene, noting that many of his comrades and family members are among the dead, and he wants to give them a proper send-off and a chance at revenge. Although the Inquisitor feels bad for his situation, she firmly reminds him that the law strictly forbids private retaliation, promising instead that the Grand Temple will hold a memorial service for the victims. The guide mockingly scoffs at the idea of a temple that slaughtered their families holding a prayer service, but the Inquisitor snaps back, calling his words blasphemy and arguing that the demon worshippers were just rogue apostates. She insists that other temples will conduct a thorough audit of this place, ensuring the memorial is handled with the utmost respect. The guide sarcastically questions if they'll just bury his people alongside the demon worshippers, and label them all as thieves, which only makes the Inquisitor angry as she demands they respect the legal punishment for theft. He mocks her idea of reverence, but when she accuses him of using the dead to justify theft, Demon suddenly loses his patience and slams the guide face first into the floor to shut him up. He orders the guards to take the captive away immediately. The Inquisitor calls out his name in shock as she watches him take charge. He coldly points out that following the law would have easily exposed these cultists, leaving her speechless. Turning his sharp gaze to the green-haired guide, Demon warns him to pay close attention. He threatens that the guide's own neck is on the line if the prisoner escapes, which the terrified beast person quickly promises won't happen. A system notification pops up with a new quest, making Demon glad that things are wrapping up. Seeing the Inquisitor's glare, he internally jokes about his roleplay while planning to farm affinity with her. Feeling exhausted despite the lowered pain settings, he decides it is finally time to log out and rest. To his absolute horror, a red system error screen appears stating that the logout command is completely unavailable. Desperate to escape, he tries to log out of the game again. A red system error message appears, stating the command is unavailable. He calls out for a logout over and over, but nothing seems to happen. The Inquisitor looks up at him, completely unaware of his internal panic. He screams the logout command one last time in sheer frustration. Multiple red system windows pop up, declaring that it is an impossible command. Demon stands frozen in shock as the reality of his situation sinks in. He stares blankly, completely stunned by the system's refusal to let him leave. Demon panics over a virtual reality logout error, realizing it could shut down the servers, but tries to convince himself it is just a dungeon lock before hearing someone call out to him. The Inquisitor asks him if he sees something in front of them. She looks around nervously, admitting that she cannot see anything at all. The Archmage explains that while possessed hosts usually become mindless zombies, Demon has somehow suppressed the entity and controlled its power. The Archmage sweats nervously, deeply unsettled by the young man's terrifying mental strength. Meanwhile, the Inquisitor stands firmly, gripping her heavy mace as she prepares for what is next. Seeing Demon turn his back and start walking away, the Inquisitor gasps in surprise. She calls out to him, demanding to know where he thinks he is going. Without stopping, Demon coldly replies that he is off to execute the corrupt who sided with the demons. As he walks, Demon desperately keeps trying to trigger the system logout command, but nothing happens. Watching him leave, the Archmage asks if there is any demonic energy, but the Inquisitor says it is not enough to be a problem. As Demon keeps spamming the useless logout command, the others assume he is still fighting off some inner corruption. The Inquisitor stands in silence, looking deeply concerned about the knight's strange behavior. When the guide asks if something is wrong with him, the Archmage admits it is too early to jump to conclusions. She notes that the guide hasn't been with Demon long, and that the young man doesn't seem like the talkative type anyway. The green-haired guide smugly replies that as a thief, paying close attention is how he makes his living. The Inquisitor glares and warns him to watch his mouth, prompting a quick, insincere apology before the Archmage moves things along. The Archmage advises killing demon contractors early, but the guide asks if they're still dangerous even when completely crippled. The Archmage warns that demonic power is unpredictable, but Demon assures them he'll finish the job before sunrise. The Archmage tells the Inquisitor it's time to head up, and she quickly agrees. The Inquisitor turns around with a serious look, ready to follow them out of the bloody chamber. As she walks up the long stone stairs, she silently prays for guidance on the righteous path. Elsewhere, the scene shifts to a close-up of some fresh ingredients and herbs laid out on a table. Right next to them, there is some dough, chopped greens, and a bundle of dried twigs. This is the bustling commercial district of Somon, where the sun is now beginning to set. Walking through the market, the group makes their way past the colorful vegetable stalls. The green-haired guide walks alongside Demon, muttering that thieves like him never forget a grudge. He looks back with a serious expression, adding that they never forget a favor either. He insists he will definitely repay him, but Demon instantly shoots down the offer as unnecessary. Even though Demon refuses, the guide is determined to do it anyway, leaving Demon wishing he could just log out instead. Frustrated by his situation, Demon throws a tantrum in front of a glowing red error screen. He screams in rage as a new quest window pops up, cursing the trash game for not letting him log out. He decides to take his leave since the Beast Person guide clearly hates him, though he can't help but marvel at how responsive the game's AI is despite the broken logout feature. Hoping for a miracle, he tries to verbally command the system to log out, but his voice command fails, reminding him of how he already tried spamming the settings menu earlier to no avail. A cold sweat breaks out as he begins to panic about what will happen to his real body if he truly can't escape. He realizes that since he lives alone as a webtoon artist with no deadlines and already told his friends he'd be gaming, nobody will come looking for him for a long time. Just as he starts to worry about starving inside the capsule, he suddenly remembers that the physical hardware itself must still have working functions. He recalls that all virtual reality machines are equipped with built-in safety features for emergencies. With renewed hope, he shouts out the emergency protocol to force a capsule shutdown. But the system shuts him down with an impossible command error, leaving him to scream in absolute frustration. In his panic, he screams for a logout, desperately trying to force a shutdown of this trash game. The Archmage and the Inquisitor watch in utter confusion, asking why he's acting so strange. Suddenly, the Archmage spots the local guards rushing toward their position. The Inquisitor worries about the consequences if Demon continues his wild rampage. She realizes how oblivious she has been to the strange reality of their situation. She quickly turns her head as a sudden shift in the air catches her attention. A dark, powerful energy surges as Demon stands before her, completely locked in his own world. Out of nowhere, someone screams at him to snap out of it as a massive blow connects right with his face. Demon is completely blindsided by the attack, but the red-haired Inquisitor just stands there, confident he can take a hit like that. He starts panicking internally, wondering why on earth she's suddenly attacking him and why his pain settings aren't working to stop the agonizing hurt. Completely overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, he can barely even process what's happening. Then she smiles warmly and says she's just glad his right arm seems to have finally calmed down. He just stares back at her in absolute disbelief, utterly confused by her bizarre logic. She explains that she thought the demon he was suppressing was acting up and trying to take over. This leaves him standing there like a total chibi, completely speechless at how misunderstood his roleplay actually is. Before he can even correct her, she beats her chest and loudly declares that she has absolute faith in him. With stars in her eyes, she passionately insists that he will eventually overcome his inner demon and never yield to its darkness. Holding her mace tightly, she begs him to trust her if something like this ever happens again. She passionately vows to buy him time no matter what, at least until he finally regains his senses. Demon, however, is completely lost, having absolutely no idea what she is talking about. He turns to the Archmage, demanding to know why the Inquisitor is suddenly acting so dramatic. The Archmage looks incredibly serious, leaving Demon even more confused about what is going on. She asks if he is truly all right, but he just wants to know the reason behind this sudden emotional outburst. Demon wonders if they are just reading from a script, asking if their eyes are just for decoration. He pieces things together, realizing that while he was struggling to log out, the demon in his arm tried to take over. He remembers the dark entity, claiming he would make a fine vessel. Realizing his character's past trauma must be resurfacing. Frustrated by how a stupid bug completely ruined his immersion, when things usually come to him naturally, he snaps that he has no time to waste on fools. But the Archmage refuses to let him walk away, insisting that she needs an answer even if he dislikes it. She steps closer, looking intensely serious as she begins to ask her real question. She directly asks him if there is truly no problem at all with his right arm. Demon reacts with a cold, knowing look, finding her suspicion rather amusing. He stops in his tracks and asks if her sudden concern is just starting to offend her own hypocrisy. The Archmage quickly clarifies that she did not mean it that way, explaining they are simply worried about what he is suppressing. Demon firmly states that his only goal is to continue hunting and killing demons, and that is all. He grips his arm and makes it clear that he does not care what they think, since he is only accompanying them because they share the same goal. He snaps back, telling them that instead of wasting time on nonsense, they should have been doing their job and killing another demon. But the Archmage ignores his attitude, bluntly asking if there is any chance he might actually become a demon himself. This completely flusters him, and he quickly stammers that such a thing would obviously never happen. Just then, the Inquisitor speaks up, firmly stating that she deeply trusts his reason and strength of will. She goes on to explain that since humans can't stand perfectly alone, they've got to trust one another to move forward, making their meeting meaningful. With a gentle look, she promises that she'll stay by his side and wait, just as God does. Demon vows to endure the hardships ahead until she finally awakens. He stands quietly in the bright sunlight, looking exhausted as he gathers his thoughts. Letting out a heavy sigh, he tries to shake off the immense fatigue weighing him down. When the Inquisitor points out his lingering eye trouble, Demon cheerfully assures her he is completely fine and thanks her for caring. The Archmage notes that the concern was not about a physical wound, leaving the Inquisitor confused just as Demon suddenly bolts away without a word. As he runs, Demon wonders why they trust him so deeply when they have barely even met. He realizes that as a hardcore otaku, receiving this much unconditional love means he has no choice but to dedicate his entire soul to them. He sighs and walks off into the sunset, trying to convince himself that the logout command will eventually work. Seeing him walk away, the Inquisitor wants to follow, but the Archmage jokingly complains that making her run is basically elder abuse. She quietly asks the Inquisitor if things will really be okay, catching the young woman off guard. The Archmage explains that the massive power they saw from him underground was unlike anything before, but it also seemed incredibly unstable. Because of that, she admits she's not confident they could actually stop him if the demon inside takes over and he goes on a rampage. Turning to her companion, she notices that the Inquisitor also looks deeply troubled. The young woman looks down, admitting she saw a flash of genuine fear in the Demon Knight's eyes just a moment ago. She wonders what could possibly terrify a man that strong, assuming he's fighting a desperate mental battle against the demon sealed in his arm. She warns herself to stay strong and not let doubt creep in, knowing that any weakness will let evil take over, especially since she cannot purify his arm. The Archmage also feels helpless, admitting she cannot save his soul or even find the right words to comfort him. But the Inquisitor remains determined to ease his fears and chooses to believe in the goodness he has managed to protect. She vows to use all her combat power to protect his resolve. Hearing this, the Archmage lets out a soft sigh. Inspired, the Archmage decides to join in and offer her strength, but Demon is left wondering why they are walking away instead of following him. A new system quest pops up telling Demon to find the traitors in the temple, leaving him anxious about going in there completely alone. The notification orders him to head to the temple and root out the traitors hiding inside. Inside the grand sunlit cathedral, the high-ranking clergy gather around the altar as the tense meeting begins. The priests whisper among themselves, deeply unsettled by the dark, heavy presence he is giving off. Suddenly, a heavy staff slams down onto the wooden podium, sending a shockwave of light through the room. The Inquisitor demands absolute silence from the whispering crowd, instantly cutting through the noise. Standing tall at the pulpit, she looks out and asks if everyone has finally gathered. The bishop steps forward, confirming that almost everyone is present, except for 7 members they couldn't reach. With a cold, glowing stare, the Inquisitor simply replies that this is good enough. She officially declares that, by her authority as a heresy inquisitor, the trial is now underway. The Archmage raises her staff, announcing that everyone's sins are about to be put to the test. As she says that those without sin will go free, Demon calmly reaches for his sword. But the Inquisitor is not feeling so merciful, warning about the fakes who dare to call themselves servants of God. Her eyes glow with pure rage as she promises they'll face judgment, which instantly triggers a new system quest for Demon to hunt down some traitors. Looking at the screen, Demon is left completely puzzled, wondering what exactly this quest is trying to make him do.